Brilliance Audio presents the unabridged recording of Paintings from the Cave, 3 novellas, by Gary Paulsen, performed by Kevin R. Free, Sarah Grace, Nick Podell, and Jim Bond. A note from the author. I was one of the kids who slipped through the cracks. I had what is euphemistically referred to as a troubled childhood. We were broke. My parents were drunk. They had, another euphemism here, an unhappy marriage. I was an outsider at school, and I pretty much raised myself at home. I had nothing, and I was going nowhere. But then art and dogs saved me. First reading, then writing. First friend pets, then sled dogs. They gave me hope that I wouldn't always be stuck in the horror of my childhood. Made me believe that there could be more to my life. Over the years since I've been writing books, I've met thousands of kids, either in person or by letter, and it's not uncommon for young people to confide in me about the nightmare of their home lives, because I've always been so open about my own. One time, though, in Topeka, Kansas, when I was visiting my friend, the librarian Mike Prince, and talking about my childhood to a bunch of kids in his library, a girl raised her hand and, in a flat, quiet voice, asked me, "But what do you do when it's bad? When it gets really, really bad?" I remember wondering what I could possibly say to her that would make a difference to her right then and there, because somehow, someday things will get better. Someday you'll be old enough to leave home. Someday you can put this behind you. Someday all of this will feel like it's a million miles away. Didn't seem authentic enough to match the honesty of her question, because someday, to that girl, was a million miles away. She had the here and now to deal with, as so many do. So many heres and nows that are cold and ugly and raw and cruel and vicious, with little to no hope. As I looked at her across the library, I saw so many faces of kids who believed themselves to be rejected and abandoned, unloved and unlovable. And so to Jake and Jojo and Jamie, 3 kids in, another euphemism here, unstable environments with nothing and no one to protect and raise them, except for dogs and art, and that little hot worm deep inside us all that, no matter how damaged and broken we are, still allows us to respond to the beauty that art provides, or the love that a good dog gives.
Man of the Iron Heads. 1. Sometimes you move right, sometimes left. In the dark, out of the light, always moving. You stop moving, you're done. My name is Jake, except they call me just Jay in the building. My aunt, she lives on 18, door 1872. I've been with her since my ma went away when I was 3, maybe 4. So I guess you could call that home, except she looks right through me most of the time, calls me trouble, nothing but trouble, born trouble. So I haven't really lived in 1872 since I was 7. She never wanted to get stuck with a kid, she tells me. So everything I do that makes her remember I'm around is trouble in her eyes. So I stay away as much as I can. Sleep on the couch at Layla's every night because her ma's either sleeping or working. That's all she does, all she has time to do, she says. Sleep and work, 2 shifts every day. I hide in the basement in the day. Stay low. I'm either 11 or 12 years old now. I lost track, and my aunt doesn't care enough to keep it straight. The school probably has papers on me. They're big on forms and being official, but it doesn't really matter how old I am. I learned a long time ago that the only thing that matters is that I gotta keep moving. You stop, you're done. You stop, Blade gets you. They call him Blade because he used a knife on a boy one time, cut a notch in his tongue, marked him so everybody knows he talked back to Blade one too many times. But he doesn't use a knife anymore. Not since he got a Glock 9 with a staggered clip, holds more bullets than God made. They say he busted a cap in Fat Charlie's gut just to see what would happen. Made a big hole, that's what happened. They say Charlie didn't do nothing but laugh at the wrong time, but I think there's more to it than that. Doesn't matter the reason though, 'cause bang, Charlie shot. They say Blade watched Charlie bleed, just stood there, watching. Didn't leave until he heard the sirens coming. Blade stays clear of sirens because he's in business. Blade sells it all. Highs and lows, weed and pills and powder, sells guns, sells people if they don't keep moving. So I move, left, right, in the dark, out of the light, moving. I was moving away from Blade when I found the man with the iron heads. 2. Blade's boys are always on the street in front of the apartment building and hanging around the front door because Blade is in 1604 selling through a little hole in a steel door. His boys watch for the cops. I watch for them. I watch for Blade's boys every waking minute of every day. I open my eyes in the morning, I look for Blade's boys. I close my eyes at night, last thing I look for is Blade's boys. When I see 'em run up the front stairs where they trade Blade a wad of cash for what he sells, then I make my move. Just inside the building, next to the old chipped back door, is the super's door to the basement. But the super doesn't come around much anymore, not since Blade started running the building. And the super never goes in the basement, not since Blade got his Glock. The lock to the basement door doesn't work, even though the door sticks. So I lift the handle, kick the bottom, push the door open. Then I slip down the stairwell to the warm and dirty furnace room. I hear rats as big as ponies moving in the far corners, but they run away as I creep the length of the basement to a window. Then I climb up and out into the empty lot in the back where it's dark. No streetlights shine back there. 40 steps and I'm at the basement window of the next building. Empty now, because they say they're going to do something called urban renewal. It never happens though, and now the building stinks from the winos and the junkies. They're no worry to me. They stay in the front of the building where the sun sometimes shines and warms them. Because it's January. Ice everywhere. There are rats running around, hiding in the piles of garbage that were left behind when everyone moved out and left the building to fall apart. But I got a stick if they get too close. Big stick. But the back of the building is where I've got my place to be when I'm too tired or cold to keep moving. I look out those back windows, or holes where the windows were, and I can see into the building on the other side of the alley. Clean, warm, light, bright, new, rich. Just 10 steps away, the good life. No rats, no Glock 9s, no druggies shaking and crying and puking. Just 10 steps away. But it might as well be a whole nother world. Layla didn't believe me when I first told her about this place. She could still get around then, back when she wasn't so far along like she is now. So I brought her here. She was 14, not quite 15, when one of Blade's men caught her. Around here, like I said, you gotta keep moving. But Layla didn't keep moving. We don't talk about that. I probably wouldn't have even known if she hadn't started getting big. A few months ago, When the construction noise ended and the tenants moved into the apartments, I brought her into this building to look across the alley at the new old building. See? I pointed. Rich folks buy old buildings, fix them up, make apartments they call lofts. Then they put up a fence to keep us out. Wire leans our way at the top, razor rippers, so we can't get over them. We can see through the fence, though. Layla and I could see the people through the windows. We watched a party in one apartment, counted the people who came with packages, shiny paper on big-ass boxes, saw the cake and the candles, heard the singing. No one ever sang to me or Layla. I just brought Layla the one time because pretty soon she was too far along that she couldn't get through the basement window anymore. I still come because I got to have my place to be, and none of Blade's boys think to come back here. No business. No reason for them to be here. I sit in the basement and look out the windows. It's freezing cold, not like the furnace room in my building, where it's warm. That's where I used to spend most days, but I couldn't see anything in the furnace room except rats and shadows. Here I can see into 6 apartments across the alley. I see 2 men who live in the same apartment on the 4th floor yelling at each other. One of them throws a plate at the wall, and the other one slams a door, just like our side of the block. Only later, I see them laughing when they sweep up the broken plate together. 5th floor, a mother and her daughter. She looks about Layla's age. They hug a lot. Hello, goodbye, good night. Laugh, eat breakfast, and supper together. It's sweet. Things would be different if Layla's ma had time to treat her like that. Then I see the man with the iron heads. Middle right, over to the side, closest to where I watch. And he has 4 windows, so I can see his loft the best. It's smaller than the others. He wears old clothes, and he seems young, too young to have a place like that, on his own even. But rich people are different. One window is the kitchen, and he stands over the sink and eats fast out of a pot like he doesn't care what he's eating. He's looking into the other room the whole time he eats. I can see better if I move, and so I go into the next room and look out the window into his other room. I see heads. Not real ones, but 3. No, 4. Made of something gray, like mud, placed on skinny little tall tables around the room. He's making heads. 3. When I get cold, it's time to go back up to Layla's. I don't like her to be on her own for too long these days. And I never want her to be alone when it gets dark and her ma's working night shifts. But I don't move. Not sure why. My knees are stiff with the cold, and even my Eskimo coat with the fur around my face can't keep me warm. Of course, it's got holes from before I found it in the dumpster. My coat keeps me pretty warm, even though it gets so cold that steam comes from the grates. When the steam comes up into the street, there could be bodies in the morning. The worst night, 3 dead winos were froze so stiff the emergency guys couldn't unbend them. They took the bodies away, still crooked. I should go, but I don't. There's something about the heads. They look alive. The man sets the pot in the sink and moves into the room with the heads. As he starts working on one with his hands, pushing the mud this way and that, it looks even more alive. He keeps looking back in a corner where I can't see unless I go up a floor, but that's too far because I'd have to go toward the front of the building, then up, then back. The crackheads are there. It's not so hard to get past them, but it takes time, and you never know. One of Blade's people might be there, so it's not worth the risk. But still, I don't leave. I can't see what he's looking at, but I watch his hands and the way he keeps looking up and then back at the head. He's frowning, but somehow he's happy too. I don't know how I know that. I just know. Finally, I can't stand the cold, and just as I get up to go, he bumps one of the stands and a head falls to the floor. Clunk. I can hear the sound through his closed window, 10 feet across the alley, and through the broken window where I'm crouching. That head isn't made of mud, but of something metal. He makes iron heads. He sits in his kitchen eating from a pot, staring at heads he makes of mud and iron. I'm so cold now, my teeth are chattering. It's late, too. If I don't get back up to Layla's apartment soon, I'll run into Blade's people. If they're out and about, I'm in. Somewhere, anywhere, doesn't matter, just so that I'm not where they can see me. Still, it's hard to leave, and I lean closer to see a little more before I have to go. The man sees me. He turns, and there we are, eye to eye, 10 steps away. And he smiles, nods and smiles to say hi. So I raise my hand, kind of wave back at him. Then I turn away to go tell Layla about the man with the iron heads. We talk about everything together, everything except how she got that big belly. And I know she'll think I'm making this up. Sometimes I do make things up, to get her to laugh. So I gotta make sure I tell this straight so she understands, so she knows, so she can see what I see. A man across the alley making metal heads out of mud in his living room. But first I got to get to the other side of the basement, across the alley, through the other window, past the furnace, then wait. Okay. Now, up the back stairs that smell like pee so bad you can't breathe. Fast. Quiet. Looking around the whole time. No one sees me. I don't see no one. I like it that way. Finally, to Layla's door on the 12th floor. Door 1240. I gotta keep moving. 'Cause you stop, you're done. 4. A man came to school once. Back when I still went to school kind of regular. Now I hardly go at all. 'Cause I got to keep moving. And they don't go for that in school. They make you stay put. So this guy, he wrote a book. And he talked like we read books. Like we got books. He talked about chapters and what he did to tell the story. And then he asked if there were any questions. What were we gonna ask him? Nobody stuck their hand up but me. I put up my hand because I had 2 things I wanted to know about this man who wrote books and thought we should read them and talk with him about them. You ever been bitten by a rat? He got real quiet. I kept talking. Sharp teeth, rats. Alley rats run, but basement rats don't always run. Sometimes they stand still and you can kill them with a stick or a brick. They got teeth like razors. I thought the man wasn't going to say anything. Finally, he said no. A dog bit me once, but it wasn't bad. He bit me on the ankle and then ran away. Then I showed him marks on my ankle where the rats bit me, and he looked like he was going to cry from seeing rat marks. He should have seen the dead wino frozen to a grate, bits of his face left there when they dragged him off. So rat bites don't mean anything. I asked him the second question. They made us read that book you wrote, and everybody in your book was happy, living in good houses, talking about their problems until the problems went away. Of course, they didn't have no one screaming on the street corner all night long. They didn't have drunks asleep in their hallways and puddles of pee first thing in the morning. Those people in your book. But anyway, in this book you wrote, there was a mother who cooked and cleaned and a father who went to work every day and came home every day, and a big brother who didn't smack anyone around. Is that true? He looked at the clock, shoved his hands in his pockets, looked down at the floor, not at me, not at anyone else in the room either. cleared his throat, and said, "Yes, there are families like that." "From around here?" He nodded. "Many of them." Then we knew he was lying. I quit going to school regular when I found out they were lying to us. Besides, there's more to learning than what's in school. Just getting through a day takes a whole world of knowing. 5. It's not so bad early in the day. Blade, he's a night man. What he sells doesn't move in the morning. First thing in the morning, food. I check the fridges. Layla's ma buys week-old bread and lunch meat. When she thinks of it, my aunt buys big cans of beans. I eat lunch meat and bread and beans till I just about puke. I'm still hungry after the beans are gone, though. Cans are big, but not that big, and nothing lasts forever. I used to shop for food at Skinny Tony's corner store half a block away. I used to shop without money, but Skinny Tony got too smart. He brought in an old hockey stick. He catches you taking something, you get the hockey stick so hard it makes your ears ring. I don't shop at Skinny Tony's without money anymore. Guys used to come with guns and rob him too. But Skinny Tony got his own Glock 9. A crackhead came in with a little 22 pea-shooter pistol, and Skinny Tony blasted him to pieces. So no one tries to rob Skinny Tony anymore. The best way to get money is to wait until the monthly checks come and everybody's messed up. Then I sweep their pockets or purses for change. After I hit up Layla's ma and my aunt, I'll go through some other apartments where the locks don't work right. I mostly get small bills, now and then a 10, once a 20. Sometimes just change. Doesn't matter, I take what I can find. I used to work the street, go 2-3 blocks away where no one knew me, and hold my hand out. I don't do that anymore. Because out there, I'm an easy target. Blade or his boys, they come by, and I'm done. Got to keep moving. You stop moving, you're done. If you don't take money from pockets and purses in the building, and you won't stand on the streets, another way to get money for food in my building is to work for Blade. I've seen it happen to enough people. I know how it works. He has them stand on a corner, and when the cops come, the people call Blade on a cell. At first he pays them with money, maybe some new shoes. They think things are good. Then he says it's time to sell some weed. Okay, no big deal. Weed is chump change around here. Then the weed turns into something else. They're still doing fine until the day comes when they stop selling, start using. And that day always comes. Then they're done, finished. Because Blade's inside their heads then. He owns them, and they have to sell more and more to keep up, and pretty soon he's selling them. Boy, girl, it doesn't matter. There are people who buy both. There are always new kids to catch, kids who don't keep moving, don't know the safe places to be, think they can sell and not be sold. Now, even without money, I still got to eat. Today I make a mistake and try to lift something at Skinny Tony's. I catch the hockey stick. When I run out of the store, I'm not watching, and I stop and hold my head. You stop, you're done. Blade gets me. 6. Of course, it isn't Blade, but one of his people. Blade doesn't have to leave the building. His people bring him food, women, all the things he sells, and money. Blade has guys who beat the crap out of whoever gets on his bad side so he doesn't have to go do it himself. Today, that's me. Petey catches me. They call him that because he drank Sneaky Pete, cheap wine. Petey grabs my wrist with his sharp hands that are like big claws, strong for such a skinny man. "Jay, how you be?" I pull left and right, but he's got me, for now. Cold. "I'm chilling," I say, "staying out of trouble." "How's that girl? What's her name?" "Layla." "I don't know. I lie. I never see her. Guess she's okay. She's fine, just fine. Blade wants to see her after she has her brat. She'll be getting a monthly check then. Blade wants to see her. 'Bout that check. 'Bout some other things. What's that to me? I know you talk to her. You tell her that after she has the kid, Blade wants to see her. I wait for his grip to loosen, but it stays tight. Blade wants to talk to you, too. I got nothing he wants. You got you. That's what Blade wants to see you about. What's he want me for? I know the answer, but I'm stalling, hoping Petey's grip will loosen. He's a little drunk, a little high, but he's moving down, not up, and he'll be nodding out soon. Blade is always looking for new opportunities. It's a big word for him, and he has to think, slow down. His hand loosens, and I'm gone. He swears after me, but I'm clean down the alley. Nobody can catch me now because I'm fast and quiet. I run like flying birds. Alley wind. God's alley wind. I run all the way to the corner before I look back to see him trying to run after me and stumbling. I go right, down 2nd Street, but not too far away from what I know. The only thing worse than being on Blade Street is when you find yourself on someone else's. Someone you don't know, someone who doesn't know you, someone with a whole new set of rules, someone who's just like Blade, but might even be worse, might leave his building, might take care of things himself, not send some skinny dumb drunk you can get away from quick. 1 block, clean, then into the alley on the next block. I stop and look back, but Petey isn't even out of the first alley, so I double back, slowing down, running from dumpster to dumpster, keeping the garbage between me and anybody looking for me. Pretty soon I'm back behind my own building, looking over to the busted basement window of the empty building where I've got my place. Nobody's around, so I truck across the lot and slide down through the window into the basement. Finally, I'm in my place, watching the other world. People are eating dinner. I'd forgotten how hungry I was, but now I remember, and I can almost touch the smell of food. My stomach growls as I watch. Seems everyone in that building eats at the same time. Must be something rich folks do. Eat at the same time every day. Together. Ironhead Man is gone. His 4 windows are dark, so I lean back and wait. I can't go out for a while. Petey's maybe waiting to catch me again, if he can even remember. If he does, though, he'll be mad and might make it worse than the first time, so I have to stay put. I chill, which is true, 'cause it's cold. In a few minutes, the Ironhead Man comes back. He throws his coat over a chair in the kitchen, pulls a pan from the fridge and puts it in the oven. Then he goes into the room with the heads and starts working. He's pinching at the mud with his thumbs and then looking in the corner where I can't see. He looks across the room while he lets his fingers trace the head he's working on. I decide to move up a floor so I'll be even with him, because I gotta see back in that corner. When I watch that man touch the mud, I forget where I am. When I see those heads, I'm not cold and hungry, standing in a filthy dump anymore. This is the one place where I can see something beautiful and where I feel warm on the inside. When I get upstairs, I look out from this new window, and there he is. But I still can't see enough, so I go 1 room over, chase a rat out, and then I can finally see in that corner. He's got a picture of a man leaning against a chair. It's a big one, like a poster. But he's just making the head of the man. All of a sudden, the kitchen's full of smoke, and he runs to take the pan out of the oven. He drops it in the sink, opens the window, and swears some good blue words. I can hear what he says because there's no glass in my window, and we can't be more than 10 feet apart. He looks up from the sink and sees me standing there watching him. We're staring right at each other. so close that I can see that his eyes are sparkly, but not shiny like he's lost to something Blade sells. He's got black skin, and he's bright somehow, like there's a street light shining out from his insides, right through his skin, right over to me. He's bald, and his head gleams like he polished it. I'm surprised that he's so young. I'm not good at guessing ages. It doesn't matter much how old you are where I live, but he doesn't seem old enough to have a place on his own. Not one that nice, anyway. "Hello," he says. "I saw you the other day. I'm Bill." I nod, but I don't say anything. He waits a minute and then says, "What's your name?" "Jake. But everybody calls me Jay. Just a letter." "Well, J, just the letter. I'd invite you to dinner, but as you can see, I pretty much burned the life out of it." "Yeah, I think. Offering me food, right. Across a fence. Put it on a stick, hold it out in the air, like feeding something at a zoo. I saw a man on the TV once, feeding crocodiles meat on the end of a stick, so that he didn't have to get close. I'm not hungry, much." He looks at me for a long time, not in a bad way, but like he's figuring me out. "How about I order a pizza?" I stare at him, saying nothing. "Don't you like pizza?" "You want to eat pizza? With me?" "Sure." "Across a fence?" "Fence." He looks out and down like he just noticed we're talking across an alley. "Well, no. You'll have to come over here. I'll let you in the building." Pizza sounds good, but I know that some people are bad to the bone when they see a kid. Blade sells to people like that. I've seen it happen. This guy doesn't seem like one of them. But I know that bad people don't always look different on the outside. People can look good, be bad. It's all in their heads. "Why are you doing this?" I ask. "Inviting you to split a pizza with me?" "Yeah." "You have a good face." I shake my head, look away. "What?" "I'm not one of those boys like on the street. You think I'm somebody who would bother a child?" His face looks like that writer guy from school when I asked if he knew about rat bites. Kind of like he's frozen or something. "I'm not a child. I'm 12. No one asks someone to come over for pizza without a reason." He exhales, rubs the back of his neck. "Well, Jay, I do have a reason for inviting you over for pizza. I'd like to make a few studies of you, your face and your head." "What for?" "I'm a sculptor. I'm making three-dimensional images of figures. Right now it's just heads, in clay. And I'd like you to sit on a stool here in my studio so I could sketch the lines and planes and curves of your head in clay to sculpt later." "Why would I do that?" "Because I'll pay you. Pizza and $10. $10 to sit and eat pizza?" "Yeah. That's it? You won't touch me?" "God, no. I promise." Then I think I have him. "You want me to take my clothes off?" I saw that on TV once. An artist made pictures of naked people. I don't have no truck with that. "No, not at all. I just want to look at your head. I'm doing a study of heads right now, and I realize, looking at you, that all I've done are adult figures. I'd like to try to capture a young person's form." I don't know what he's talking about. But he's got food, and he's got money, and I can give them both to Layla afterwards. She likes pizza, and she needs the money. I can do this for Layla. Besides, I want to see the heads. "All right, where do I go?" He smiles again. "Go to the next block." He points out the window to the front of his building. "I'll meet you there." So I go to the basement, Out the window, down the alley to the street that runs alongside the building, looking for Petey all the way. But I never go this way, so it's not likely Petey does either. I walk along the fence on the side street to the front of the Ironhead man's building. He's there, and he opens the door and holds out his hand. "What's that for?" I ask. "To shake." "I told you, no touching." He nods and moves back so I can step through the door. I slip past him, and I go into Bill's world. 7. Once, when I was still in school, they took us on a trip downtown to the library and a museum where a bunch of dead people's things were laid out for us to look at. Those places were like Bill's world. Quiet, clean, warm. His hallway doesn't smell of pee and worse, and the walls are clean, no gangbanger raps spray-painted everywhere. He waits for me to go ahead of him, but I tip my head at him so that he'll walk in front of me and I can keep an eye on him. I got to keep moving, and I got to watch things. A person could get in trouble if he doesn't do that. The elevator works. The place doesn't stink, and the elevator works. I shake my head. We go up to his floor and down the hall to his loft. He's got no real rooms like the apartments I know. It's one big space. The kitchen is at one end, and I see his bed, just a piece of foam and a blanket in a corner. A couch that's missing a cushion is under the windows, and he's got piles of books everywhere. So many that it looks like that library they took us to. I wonder how long it took this man to read all these books. No TV, but soft sounds coming from a radio. It's not really music, because there isn't any real punch to it. The wood floors are clean and shiny, not like the torn carpets in my building, so old they aren't even a color anymore. His place smells funny, like burned food from the oven, then paint and something from the statues. Statues. From the windows, I could only see 3 or 4 of them. Inside, I see that statues are all over, some small, some a little bigger. Not all of them are heads. One statue is a bird with open wings, and there are a few small statues of girls dancing, little arms out like they're spinning around so you think they're moving. I look at the pictures on all the walls, and a wooden frame with a big white pad of paper in one corner of the big room. Off to the side is a bathroom. I take a quick peek. Clean, just to make sure I flush the toilet. He's watching me, so I say, "We don't even have water half the time." He looks out the window across the fence. That's not right. No shit, I think. That's not right. There's nothing right about the other side of the fence. Everything's different over there, even the air. "You live here all the time?" I ask. "Is this your home, or just where you come to make heads?" "A little of both, I guess. It's just my place to go." "Yeah, I got one of those too. A man needs his place to go." He looks at me, frowning, and continues. "I won a small grant. It's not much, but it's enough so that I don't have to worry about money, and I was able to leave school for a while." "Yeah, me too." He raises an eyebrow, so I say, "I left school too. Only," I laugh through my nose, "I don't think it's for just a while." "But..." He starts to say something, stares at me for a second, then looks at a number on the wall, picks up the phone, and punches the buttons. "What kind of pizza do you want?" "A big one, with everything except them little stinking fish." "Anchovies?" "Yeah, they smell worse than the dumpster in the summertime." I'm talking too much. It's better to just listen. You can't learn anything talking because you're just saying stuff you already know. You've got to be quiet to learn, and keep moving. He orders pizza, then points at the stool in the corner next to the big picture of the man. "Would you go sit on that stool, please?" With my coat on? It's up to you, but aren't you too warm with it on? Cooking like a hot dog in a bun, that's how warm I am. But I want to keep it on in case I have to run. This guy talks all right, but you never know. He could buy the pizza, then pull a knife. But I want to see how he makes those heads, and he doesn't seem bad, so I take the coat off. I keep it close, though. How do you want me to sit? Any way you like, as long as you're comfortable. Why are you making all these heads? I sit, prop my feet on the crossbars of the stool, stay cool. You sell them? He laughs. Well, not so far. I have to find a gallery for them so that they can be shown and sold. That's next, I guess. You want to know what you should do? He tips his head, smiles. Sure. Naked ladies. You make statues of naked ladies, and they'll sell a lot faster than a bunch of heads. He laughs again, a nice laugh. You're probably right. I know I'm right. I saw it on TV. 200 years ago, some man did a painting of a naked lady, and somebody just sold it for $2 million. How come some of the heads are made out of iron? I ask. It's not iron. They're bronze castings. All of them will be made into bronze later, if I can afford it. Bronze? What's that? It's a mixture of metals, copper and tin. It's quite hard. I shrug. Same as iron to me. I don't know from copper and tin. He reaches into a cardboard box lined with a plastic bag and scoops handfuls of mud. He plops them on a table that's covered in newspapers, makes a big lumpy ball. Where do you get the mud? I point. It's called clay. I order it from an art supply store, and they deliver it. I watch him work with his hands on the clay, and pretty soon I see that the head is taking shape. I see eyes, see ears, see nose and lips. It doesn't look like me, but something makes me think of me. Like I'm in the clay somewhere. Like I'm waiting to come out. How do you do that? Do what? Make me come out of that clay. Another smile. This iron-head man smiles more than anyone I've ever seen. Nice, though, even if I'm not used to it. Usually when I see someone's teeth, it's 'cause they're yelling. I always wanted to draw or paint or do some kind of art with my hands, so I went to school to learn, and then I knock on the door and I jump off the stool. Only the cops knock like that. But it's the pizza. In all my life, I never had food brought to me. I can smell it across the room, and my stomach grumbles so loud I bet Petey and Blade, wherever they are, can hear it. Then we eat. He takes one piece, but he's still looking at the clay head. Chew, swallow, steady eyes. He looks back at me, but not to talk. He tilts his head, looking hard. He sets down his pizza, goes over to the stand, and starts again. It's been a long time since I had hot food, and I eat one whole piece of pizza, then another. Tastes so good my jaws hurt. Third piece, fourth, and I slow down. I think of Layla. You gonna eat more? I ask him. He shakes his head. I'm not that hungry. Are you enjoying it? Am I enjoying it? Grease and cheese around my mouth, crumbs on my t-shirt, more food than I've had in 6 months. I've never had enough to eat. Not so much that I wasn't still a little hungry around the edges. It's all right. Then take the rest with you. I've never liked cold pizza. There's still a little over half left for Layla and that baby inside that she's feeding. I nod. My friend Layla likes pizza. Do you think she'd come with you sometime and let me sculpt her head? I could pay her like I'm paying you, $10. I shake my head. Hard for Layla to get around. Is she sick? I've seen her puke her guts up in the mornings, but that's just baby sick. No, she's going to have a baby. Oh. He stops pushing the clay and looks off like he's studying that picture again. Only he's not looking at anything but air. So she's much older than you? I nod. She's 15. 15. He stops talking then and starts working the clay again, and I can see he has questions. I'm thinking, in his life, he doesn't always have to be moving. In this warm, soft place he has, he doesn't know anything about how you've got to keep moving. She was too slow, I say. A man caught her in a stairwell. And I tell him about her. I don't know why, but it all comes out. Layla and me, and living in the building. He looks like he's about to cry, even though it wasn't him got caught in that stairwell. He looks out the window. Right there across that fence. I didn't know. I laugh, except it isn't funny. He doesn't smile back at me this time, just stands there looking out the window like he's never seen that view before. I guess he hasn't. It's not the kind of thing people notice, not that they don't have to. He'd stopped working, but now he starts again, slow, like he's not really paying attention. I do, though. I watch how he takes bumps and smooths them, adds bumps to where it's smooth. He runs his fingers along the slopes of the head on the stand. I could watch forever. A while later, he stops to turn on some lights, and I look outside. It's dark. That's not good. Layla's alone, and I've got to get back in the building. Without being seen. Carrying half a pizza. After I made Petey and Blade mad at me. It's time for me to go, I say. It's not late. It's not even 6 yet. That doesn't matter. It gets dark early in the winter. Things change when it's dark. Bill looks out the window and then back at me, nodding. You've got a point there. The night people come out, I say, because he has no idea about the dark, and they're always looking to get it over on someone. I can walk you home, he offers, like he'd know what to do if Blade's boys came up on him in the dark. You don't belong over there, I tell him, because I got enough to worry about getting me back to my building without thinking about him on Blade's side of the block. Be careful, Jay. My gut starts to tighten up around all that pizza I ate, because I'll be lucky to make it back. And I hate when I have to be lucky. Luck is nothing to count on. I pick up the pizza. I gotta go now. And I leave. 8. There's nowhere to go at night that's safe. Night people with night eyes are in the alleys, in the halls. They're watching and waiting. They'll hurt you for $1. They'll kill you for $10. They say a woman in the building sold her baby to Blade for a $7 bag of what he sells. He turned right around and sold that baby to some rich lawyer for $900. Bill's building is all lit up in front. On this side of the block, nobody breaks the bulbs so they can carry on in the dark. I hate the lights when it's dark outside because everybody can see you. You can't move fast in the light. I run back to the alley between the buildings and then stop. Listen. I stay out of sight. Stop, then move, stop, then move. A little sound. I stop again. Hold my breath. Crouch down. Someone digging on the other side of the dumpster. He doesn't know I'm there. Blown-out druggie doesn't know anything. I hide, part of the dark 2 feet away, and he shuffles past me without knowing I'm there. Now across to the basement window, to the furnace room. Warm, but stinking. Now that I've been in Bill's room where it didn't stink, I can smell things I didn't before. I can smell myself. I wait in back of the furnace. Then a new smell. A smell I know, a smell I love. Layla? I hear her soft breath. That you, Jay? Who else? You smell like food. Pizza. Leave the light out. Come to my voice. There's nobody down here but us. I left the light off so nobody'd think I'm here. I've been here for over an hour waiting for you. You didn't come. I thought Blade had you. Petey caught me, but I got away. I find her in the dark and put the pizza box in her hands. Here. She takes a breath. Where'd you get this? Somebody gave me half a pizza. You eat it all. I already ate. She chews and sighs, a soft sound in the dark. I dig in my pocket. Here's some money. $10. I know you gotta buy those vitamin pills so the baby grows good. I can't take your money, Jay. I can get more. He wants me to come back. Who? Her voice is hard. Come back for what? The artist I met. I met an artist, and he pays me pizza and $10 for sitting. What do you mean, sitting? He pays me to sit, and he makes a model of my head with clay, and later he'll turn it into iron. You're crazy. You've always been a little loose, but now you're making things up. He's in the building on the other side of the fence. One of them rich people like we watched that time. He's an artist. Name's Bill. He paid me $10 to sit on a stool, and he made a statue of my head. You're messing with me. Nope. He bought the pizza, then gave me the money. Said he'd make a clay head of you, too, except I told him you couldn't get through the basement window. I'd stick in the window like a cork in a bottle. We both laugh at the picture, then grow quiet. She's thinking, and I'm wondering about the head he was making of me. It's really something to see. I start. What? The way he moves the clay around with his thumbs. Pretty soon I can see me inside it, waiting to come out. Sounds like you liked it. Watching him made me want to do it. So you're going back? I didn't say anything, but I knew I would. To see if I could get another pizza. To see if I could get $10 more for Layla. More. To see if I could move the clay like he did. You come sit next to me on the bench here. Her voice is low, and I move to her, put my arms around her shoulders. She holds me around the waist, and we sit like that in the dark. I think she's just breathing, but then I know she's crying. I'm scared. It'll be all right. I hate it here. I hold her tighter. It'll be all right. Like I know. Like I know anything. 9. Me and Layla spent the night in the basement with the lights off because she couldn't go home. Ma lost her night job, Layla tells me. Got mean drunk when she came home. Blamed me for getting pregnant. Blamed me for everything. Like always, I say. We have that in common, getting blamed for everything that's wrong. We slept some, talked some, cried some. Just after the light comes through the little window, Layla goes back upstairs because she knows her ma left for her day job. But I go outside and through the alley and into the other building, back to my place. I want to see about working with clay today. I look out the window, but Bill isn't up yet. And even my Eskimo jacket can't stop the cold. Cold comes in like a snake, crawling around inside my clothes. My feet hurt for a long time. Don't stop hurting until I can't feel them anymore. Finally, Bill wakes up. I watch him move back and forth. He goes past windows without looking until finally, when he's putting water in a tea kettle, he looks up and sees me. He opens the window. Steam comes off the sink and outside. He looks warm. Good morning, Jay. How long have you been there? Just got here. No sense telling him everything. Thought I'd see how you're doing. I'm fine. Since you're probably not going to school today... He pauses, and when I shake my head, he continues, Come over and have some oatmeal, and then we can work for a while. I didn't finish what I started last night. See you at the door. I go out to the middle of the building and start climbing out through the basement window. Petey. Another man is with him, named a Slipper, who's high all the time, worse than Petey. They're by the dumpster, but they don't see me, so I pull my head back in. They're out early looking for something. I can see their breath in the freezing air, and I know they're not out this early and in this cold unless Blade sent them for something. For someone. Only one thing Petey could be looking for, 'cause there isn't any money to be made on the street this time of day. He's looking for me. Blade's got everything God made. Money, connections uptown, the big M car, the Glock 9, women. Everyone on this street is either scared of him or working for him, and it's not fair that he wants me, too. But I know that when I got away from Petey, I made Blade look bad, 'cause Petey works for Blade, and Blade doesn't like looking bad. Blade can't let that be. I move across the basement to rooms I don't usually go in, wade through trash almost to my knees, to another window on the other side of the building. Petey's so drunk he thinks he can stand by a dumpster and catch me. His brains are nothing but mush from the drugs. I climb outside, take the long way around the block to the other world, and I see Bill at the door, waiting for me. I slip inside, warm, safe, good smells. He hands me a bowl of something tan covered with brown sugar, flecked with dark things. What are those? Raisins. Don't you like them? Sometimes. I shrug. What are they? Grapes. You dry grapes in the sun, and they turn into raisins. I eat the whole bowl, and it's so hot and sweet it hurts my teeth, but good. I wish I could take some back for Layla. He puts the bowls in the sink when we're done, and then slides the stand with my head out from a corner. The head looks different from when I saw it last. Twisted or something, like I'm looking over my shoulder. There's nothing below the head, but the way the statue is looking, you know there's a shoulder down there. You can almost see the whole body below the head, even though there's nothing but air in the post for the stand. Can you teach me to do that? He looks up quickly, surprised, smiles. I can help if you want to try sculpting. He finds another small work table, puts it in front of my stool, and drops a lump of clay on it, as big as both of my fists. What do I do? Put your hands in the clay. Learn the texture and get used to the feeling. I want to do what you did. How do I make the clay look like what I can see in my head? You have to work a while before the clay shows you things that aren't there yet. But I want to make Layla. He inhales sharply and studies my hands on top of the clay. He comes over to the stand and looks into my eyes like he's seeing me for the first time. Do you have a picture of her in your mind? Sure. Layla's like the other side of me. Do you love her? What's that got to do with making her come out of the clay? I frown at him. His face changes and he steps back quick, like he said something he shouldn't have or done what he shouldn't, like he's worried that he's made me mad. Working with the clay it's about a kind of love. You have to see things like you love them. Whether it's Layla or a brick, you have to see inside them to make the clay show you what's there. How do you love a brick? But I can see he's happy talking like this, even if it is crazy. How do I start? Here. He takes my hands in his. I try to pull away, but he holds firm. placing my hands gently on the lump of clay before he lets go. Knead the clay. Work your fingers into the clump. Learn how the clay moves under your hand. Feel how much pressure you need, and sense the difference against your fingertips and your knuckles and the heel of your hand. Start to try to make the shape round, like a head. Just work at that, and when you can see her, when you can see Layla's head in your hands, then I'll show you how to add clay and make the nose, lips, ears. So I start. Warm, slow hands in the cool, soft clay, just trying to make it round. I start. 10. Time stops. I don't know how to say it another way. I stop thinking of when, only thinking of what. No more whens or ifs. Layla in the clay. She's in there, waiting to come out. I use my fingers to try to find her, like she's hiding, and I've got to find her and bring her out. I don't think of where I am when I'm working. Everything else goes away. This room, the neighborhood, the building on the other side of the block, Blade and Petey. I even forget Bill is there, listening, watching. I don't know how long we've been working, but when I look up, he's looking at me. Not the way he was studying me when he sculpted me, but I don't know, nice somehow. Nobody ever looked at me like that before. What? I say. You were talking to yourself. I was? Yeah. Who's Blade? He's over on my side of the block. He sounds like a very bad man. He's badder than words can say. I think about telling Bill about how Blade got his name, about the drugs and the money and the girls, and Petey hunting me for him. But Bill wouldn't believe me, wouldn't get it. I don't even know words bad enough for Blade. Isn't there something you could do? Call the police? Now I know he's shining me on. The police? Call the cops to come to my side of the block and do something with a drug dealer? I laugh. Not a real laugh. Through my nose. There's not enough police in the whole world to take the drug dealers out of my neighborhood. Besides, I call them, they'll think I'm playing them. I'm just some dumbass kid on the phone. They won't come. What if I call them? Will they come then? It won't matter anyway, because Blade'll know before they get there. His people on the street tell him. The cops get there, and there's nothing to see. Nobody to arrest. Then they go away, and Blade is still here. Only then he's pissed. You're over here, warm and safe. We're stuck with Blade, who knows how to hurt people. Don't call. It won't do any good anyway. There's only one way to stop Blade. We look at each other in the silence before I continue. But even then, another Blade will just come along. Nothing works out on our side of the block. Bill looks down, toys with a piece of clay, stares out the window for a few seconds, and then goes back to his work. I look at mine. I see something coming, so I just let my fingers push here, pinch there, make a line with my fingernail. They're short because I'm all the time chewing on them. But they make a line if I use the edge, and I see an eye, then another, a corner of lip. God! I hear it in back of me and jump. Bill came up on me, and I didn't even hear him. What? Is that Layla? He reaches out like he wants to touch her face, but then he pulls his hand back. What is she afraid of? His voice is hoarse. He sees that. I didn't know it was even in the clay. But now I see it in the corners of her eyes. I know what she's afraid of. But I lie. I shrug like I don't know. He squints. Her eyes off to the side like that, looking back almost like she sees. We don't say anything, but we both know that it's a monster she's looking at. Blade. 11. 3 days go by, and I go to Bill's each day, and we work together. He studies me while I work the clay. He doesn't do just one head. He does 3, then 4, all of me, but each one is different. In one I'm smiling because I was thinking of Layla having a baby. What the baby would be like. Cute, I know, 'cause it's from Layla, and it'll smile a lot at Layla and me. Bill pays me $10 and gives me a pizza every day. I meet Layla every night, and we sit in the dark and talk in whispers, sleep in the basement, stay away from her apartment and her ma, who still hasn't found another night job. Petey's looking for you, Layla says the third night in the basement. He came to my place looking for you. Petey couldn't find himself if he was looking in a mirror. He's mad. His eyes were twitching when he said your name. Petey's all talk. I don't know. He scares me. I want to say you're scared all the time, Layla, but I don't. She's right to be scared, and I should listen. I should have listened. At Bill's the next morning, I do 2 heads. Layla, then Petey, but I don't know why. Bill said to make what I think about most in my head, and Petey's in there. Every now and then, Bill comes over to show me how to make my clay look better. He uses his thumb here or there, and I can see what I was trying to do. While we work, he tells me about himself. He's 20, and he says should be in college. Where I live, no one even makes it through high school. His parents are upset that he dropped out. I think on that for a while. Folks on my side of the block don't get upset. Hell, they don't even notice when you stop going to school. He says he didn't have enough time for art when he was going to classes, and he's applied for something he calls a grant. Like a loan, I figure. It's enough to rent this place for a few years and buy the clay to work, get a few pieces cast in bronze from time to time. I'll sell what I can, buy materials, keep going. I might not know much about anything else he's talking about, but I know what it means to keep going. I work on the heads while he talks. After 3 days, it seems like we've been doing this forever. I wish we could keep doing this forever. Bill says, "You're good, Jay." And I say, "No, you're shining me on." But he says, "No, you're really good. You have real talent. I mean, look at this Petey guy. He could pose for a statue of the devil. He just looks evil. And you caught it. I've never seen anybody without any training who could do anything like this. Jay, you really are amazing." It's nice to have somebody tell you you're good at something. I don't think I ever heard anyone say anything like that to me before. I got to talk to Layla about this. Of course. Tell her I said you have real talent, and it would be a shame to waste it. Waste. I get a picture in my mind of a boy, a skinny boy with rat bites and bad teeth. I see that boy and how I could find him in the clay. I know who the boy...
Forever. Are you going to the ball? Me? No. He shook his head. Would you like a gift box for the pin? Yes, thank you. Felix reached under the counter and brought out a small white box and a stack of thin red tissue paper. Natasha hired a catering firm, but my mother wants to make sure everything goes off without a hitch. He opened the box and tucked some of the sheets of tissue inside. Then he set the pin on top of the paper and folded the sides over the pin. She's 72, and I worry about her stress levels. He put the lid on the box. I told her I'd keep her company, in case she needs help with anything. That's very nice of you, Molly said. She certainly has worked on the estate a long time. Yes, she has. That's why I'm selling tickets for the event." He put the box into a white bag with Monkey Paws Antiques written in swirling red letters on the front. "I've only managed to sell 8, but Natasha told me last week that over 100 tickets had already been sold." "That's good news for the pediatric unit," Molly said. "I Googled Natasha. There wasn't much on her, other than she's known for her philanthropic work. Does she have a profession?" "No, although I suppose being a fundraiser and party planner for charities could qualify as a type of profession, couldn't it?" Starling said, "Only if you don't need a steady paycheck. She's lucky she doesn't have to work for a living. She must be very comfortable." "She inherited the entire Misty Vale estate after her parents passed away in the late 90s, he said. "I admire her for managing it on her own all these years." He handed Molly her credit card, and she slipped it into her handbag. "I read she's never married and has no children." Felix handed the bag to Molly. Molly tucked the bag into the zippered tote she kept in the stroller. "Well, maybe one day you'll be able to convince her to part with a few of her treasures," she said. "In the meantime, it was very nice meeting you, Felix. I'll be in touch about a date and time to get together for an interview." "The pleasure has been all mine." He raced around the counter to the door and held it open for them. "Have a nice day, ladies." When the door was shut behind them and they were alone on the sidewalk, Molly looked across the street at Raris Books. She wondered if Felix had badmouthed the owner because he didn't like him. But then she noticed the gilded gold paint on the store's wooden sign above the window appeared faded and chipped, and she realized Felix was probably telling the truth. The owner wasn't taking care of his shop. Starling saw where she was looking and said, "If Felix hadn't told you not to go to Raris Books, I would have. Tony and I stopped in there once, and we lasted about 2 minutes before we started sneezing. The shop is shabby, and it smelled musty. Felix was right about the owner, too. He never said a word to us. He didn't even smile or say hello. He just stood there staring at us like we were aliens from another planet. I thought he was weird and creepy, but maybe he was drunk. I could smell alcohol when we walked by him." Molly pushed the stroller down the sidewalk in the direction of home. She didn't want to look at Raris Books and its faded sign. What she did want to do was talk to Starling about Tony Lombardi, and her mentioning his name was the perfect opening. The couple had broken off their relationship 12 days ago, but Starling hadn't told her or Matt the reason, and Lombardi had been tight-lipped about it too. The only thing he'd told Molly was that it just didn't work out. She hated to pry, but she also wanted to know what happened. Lombardi wasn't a stranger to their family. He was a good friend, and Tyler's godfather. She cleared her throat. Speaking of Lombardi, you know I invited him to Thanksgiving dinner long before you broke up. I've been meaning to ask you if I should rescind the invitation." Starling glanced at her. "Did he say something to you about it?" "No. As far as I know, he's still coming." "Well, it's fine with me," Starling said. "You know, if you want to talk about what happened, I'm here to listen." Starling smiled. To look at her, you'd never know her heart was broken. Her blue eyes were as clear and bright as the sky, her sandy blonde hair was glistening, and she acted as if the world was her oyster. "You and Uncle Matt are very kind," Starling said. "I know you're curious about why we broke up, and I know you're worried about me, but you don't need to be. Tony and I are still good friends." She paused. Molly hoped she'd keep talking. "The thing is, it turned out the age difference was too much for him, which I totally understand. I told him if he felt that strongly about it, then it was better we stopped seeing each other right away. I didn't want to prolong things." Molly was surprised. "I thought if age became an issue, you'd be the one who felt it, not him," she said. But the minute she spoke those words out loud, she realized she should have known it would be Lombardi who would use their 10-year age difference as an excuse to break up with Starling. And it wasn't because she was so much younger than him, or that he didn't have any feelings for her. His problem was his inability, or refusal, to make a long-term commitment. Molly was beginning to think he was simply incapable of it. Starling gave a little shrug. "We had fun, and now it's over, that's all. I'm okay with it, really." And maybe she was, Molly thought. Starling's generation seemed to handle breakups better than her own. She remembered crying herself to sleep every night for a month when she broke up with a young man she'd barely dated for 3 weeks. Starling was treating the breakup with Lombardi like it was no big deal. "Are you sure you don't mind him coming over for Thanksgiving dinner?" "I already told him not to feel strange coming over to the house," Starling said. "I know he's friends with you and Uncle Matt, and he loves Tyler. I don't want it to be weird. I want us to be friends." She smiled, but this time Molly thought it looked a little forced. Maybe she was hiding her true feelings after all. "Thanksgiving will be perfect." Molly hoped so. But in her experience, once you dated someone and broke up with them, it wasn't easy to maintain a friendship or socialize with them. Starling changed the subject. "Have you got everything you need for the gala ball? Do we need to make any other stops?" The sun went behind a cloud, and suddenly it felt 10 degrees colder. Molly pulled her gloves out of her pockets and put them on. "I have my dress and shoes, and I've made an appointment tomorrow morning at the hair salon." She felt a shiver go down her spine. She loved the fall, but the temperature was so erratic day to day, she never knew what to expect. The invitation promises dancing and a buffet dinner until 10, and Matt said he heard from people who've gone to other fundraisers Natasha Gordon has organized that she always goes full out. Having it at Mistyvale is going to make it even more special. "Sounds like fun," Starling said. "I'm sure it will be," Molly said. After all, what could possibly go wrong? Chapter 2. Saturday evening was cold, but the sky was clear and full of stars. Surrounded by tall hedges, Molly felt like a princess as she walked beside Matt up a wide gravel path to the manor house at Mistyvale. She wished she'd heeded his advice to wear a coat. Her vintage 1960s black velvet ball gown, with its off-the-shoulder bodice and voluminous taffeta skirt, was no match for the weather. "I hear music coming from the house," Matt said. The large brick house reminded Molly of Kensington Palace, which they'd taken a tour of on their honeymoon. Only, instead of being set down in the middle of London, it was in the wooded countryside of Vermont. "Sounds like Natasha Gordon hired a real band. No DJs for her." He glanced at Molly. "You look absolutely beautiful. You're also shivering. Let me give you my jacket." No, I'm fine. And by the way, I forgot to tell you, I think you look very handsome in your tuxedo." "Thank you, sweetheart." "Handsome and nice and warm," she added. He laughed. "I'll give you my jacket." "No, you'll ruin your look." "My look?" He laughed. "You sound like your mother. But have it your way. How are you doing in those high heels? You seem a little wobbly." "They're definitely not made for speed or comfort," she said. "I didn't expect the walk from the parking court to be so long, either." She took Matt's arm as they approached the manor's double staircase. She was worried she might trip on her gown as they climbed the steps. When they reached the portico landing, Matt took their tickets out of his pocket, and they got in line. When he handed the tickets to the woman collecting them at the door, she smiled and welcomed them. Stepping into the enormous foyer, Molly took in the gleaming Italian marble floors, gold-domed ceiling, massive chandeliers, and sweeping staircase. Music seemed to fill the house, and Molly felt her excitement grow as she observed the other guests. Everyone dressed to the nines for this gala ball, laughing and smiling, enjoying their evening out. She felt her toes pinch in her shoes, but she was determined not to complain. It was, however, times like this when she wished she was like her mother, who lived in designer clothes and could dance all night in a pair of heels. Molly was the complete opposite. She preferred to wear comfortable, casual clothes, much to her mother's great disappointment. She had taken her advice on buying the vintage gown, and had spent hours at her hair salon having her shoulder-length brown hair swept into an updo, and her makeup expertly applied. "Are you hungry?" Matt asked. "Would you like to eat first and dance later?" "You know me. I can always eat. But let's check out the ballroom. We could get a drink to kick off the evening." "Sounds good to me," he said. As they entered the ballroom, they paused a moment to admire the arched ceiling. which was painted blue with white clouds to resemble the sky. The band was set up on a stage at the far end of the room, by a long row of Palladian windows that overlooked a brightly lit terrace. The dance floor wasn't too crowded. Most of the guests were milling around the room, chatting with friends, making new acquaintances, drinking cocktails or wine. Hors d'oeuvres were being carried on silver trays by waitstaff, and Molly snagged a crab and avocado toast from one of them. "I'll get our drinks," Matt said. "What would you like?" "White wine, please." "Wait here. I'll be right back." Matt walked through the crowd to the bar, where a line had formed. Molly stood by the windows, out of the way of people coming in. She enjoyed listening to the music, tapping her foot in time. When someone tapped her on the shoulder, she almost jumped out of her shoes. "Oh! I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to startle you." The voice belonged to a man in his late 20s with short dark hair, big green eyes, and an athletic build. He looked very stylish in a cobalt-black floral tuxedo jacket and black pants. "Are you Molly Appleby?" "Yes, I am. Who are you?" He stuck out his hand and smiled. "Maxim Gordon-Cobb. But please call me Maxim." "Hello, Maxim." She shook his hand. "Gordon is your middle name? Are you by any chance related to Natasha Gordon, our hostess for the evening?" "She's my aunt. I'm visiting her from Lexington, Mass. I live there with my husband, Kurt. We own an antique store called Times Past." The band started up a loud dance number, heavy on the brass instruments, and he raised his voice a little. "We're subscribers to Collectors Weekly and huge fans of yours, which is how I recognized you. We adore your writing. You're smart and witty and a fabulous reporter. You make antiques come alive." "Oh, well, thank you," Molly blushed. A second compliment in 2 days. She was breaking some kind of record. "Is Kurt here tonight?" "No, he's at home, minding the shop." "It's very generous of your aunt to host these events." "She loves doing it," he said. "She's been planning this one for months. I wasn't going to come, but my father called a few weeks ago, and I told him I'd help him with a project, and here I am. His name is Curtis Cobb. Do you know him? He's a rare book dealer. He owns Rarest Books in town." "No, we've never met." She wasn't going to tell him that Felix and Starling had warned her away from his father's shop. "What kind of project are you working on?" "I'm glad you asked," he said. "Rarest Books is on the brink of closing, and I'm trying to help my father save it." Felix hadn't been exaggerating when he'd said the shop might be closing soon, she thought. "The problem is, he's old school, and refused to change a thing about the shop since my grandfather died, which was about 20 years ago. My mother told him he was making a mistake by not modernizing, but he didn't listen to her. I've been here for 3 weeks inventorying the shop and setting up a website and eBay account for him. I thought it would help to generate new sales if I could get him online. He really needs to grow the business, but the shop looks worn out inside and needs a complete makeover, and now I'm worried he's left it too late to fix." "Selling rare books is a niche business," she said. "A website would have made a big difference, not only in domestic sales but international. Even if you give the shop a makeover, it could take a while to see a change. Can he hold out for long?" "No, not really." His eyes grew thoughtful. "I feel like this is fate, meeting you tonight. I hope you don't think I'm being pushy, but would you consider writing an article about Dad and the shop? He could really use the publicity." Molly hesitated. She didn't like being put on the spot, and she certainly wasn't going to make a commitment to write an article about a failing business. "I'm not sure my editor would approve." It was a good excuse, if not entirely true. Her boss, Carl Swanson, usually gave her a lot of leeway when it came to choosing her subjects. "I understand," he said. "But do you think you could ask?" I'd rather not, she thought. But he was staring at her with his big green eyes, and she found herself saying, "Sure, I suppose I could do that." "Fantastic! Wait here, and I'll get my father and introduce you." He took off like a shot before Molly could stop him. What had she done? The last thing she wanted to do was write an article about Maxim's father and his grungy shop. Sighing, she looked at the line at the bar, searching for Matt. He was still online, with 4 people ahead of him. She thought about grabbing him and running out of the room to get out of meeting Curtis Cobb, but that would be immature and unprofessional. She would meet the man, but unless he could persuade her that his story would be of interest to her readers, which she doubted it would be, she would make it clear she wasn't going to agree to anything without getting prior approval. It was the easy way out, but too bad. Maxim returned a minute later with his father. Curtis Cobb had a shock of untidy gray hair, a bony face, and a stern expression. He looked Molly up and down and frowned, as if he found her offensive in some way. Molly's cheeks grew warm. She was a full-figured size 12, with curvy hips, and stood 5'8" in her stocking feet. She didn't like being stared at. "Maxim tells me you're going to write an article about me and the shop, to help get us up and running again." Maxim threw an apologetic look at Molly. "Dad, I told you she hasn't agreed to anything yet. She has to get permission." "I thought you were joking." Curtis looked pointedly at Molly. "It's not like you write for the Boston Globe. What's the big deal?" Molly was speechless. If he was trying to win her over, he was doing a terrible job of it. Maxim said, "The magazine is a big deal, and you know it." "Yeah, right." Curtis had a full glass of red wine, and he took a long drink of it, draining half his glass. "Well, you can go tell your boss he'll be making a terrible mistake if he takes a pass on my story. It's positively riveting." He took a step closer to Molly, totally invading her personal space, which counted as another negative in her mind. "I've got a dead wife, and a business that's been torn apart by a cultural shift brought on by idiotic people who've forgotten how to read." His speech was slightly slurred, and his breath smelled like stale wine. "That's the real reason Rarest Books is hanging on by a thread. It's stupid people. It's not my fault they're dumb. It's the culture we're living in today." Molly was stunned. She didn't know what to say. Maxim had turned pink. "Dad, please." "Please? Is that all you've got to say?" Molly wondered what time Curtis had started drinking. He stabbed Maxim in the chest with his index finger. "You're the one who dragged me over here," he said. "I thought this was all settled." Molly cleared her throat. "Mr. Cobb, I must agree with you. Collector's Weekly is far too insignificant a magazine to do justice to an important story like yours. I wish you the best of luck finding someone at the Boston Globe who will, I'm sure, be happy to write it." She turned to Maxim and smiled sweetly. "It was very nice to meet you." She walked away as fast as she could in her high heels, but not fast enough to escape hearing Curtis say to his son, "Thanks for nothing. That was a complete waste of my time. Not that it matters. I don't need her dumb magazine. Have you seen Hattie?" Chapter 3. Molly caught up to Matt as the bartender handed him 2 glasses of white wine. He gave one to Molly, and she immediately started to walk to the exit, leaving him no choice but to follow her. When they reached the hall, he said, "I thought you wanted to hang out in the ballroom for a while and listen to the band." "I did, before I met Curtis Cobb. He owns Rarest Books." As they walked down the hall to the dining room, she told him how Maxim had ambushed her, and how his father had embarrassed both of them. "If he treats his customers the same way he treated you," Matt said, "it's no wonder his business is tanking." "I feel sorry for Maxim," she said. "His father was so rude, and I think he's already drunk. If he'd been nice to me, maybe I would have considered interviewing him." "Well, it's his loss." They walked into the dining room, and Matt smiled. "This will get your mind off of Curtis Cobb. Look at all this food." The dining room table was covered in white linen, with stainless steel chafers filled with hot dishes of chicken, beef, fish, and vegetables. At the far end were tiered plates of desserts that made Molly's mouth water. Small tables with tiny bud vases and votive candles had been placed strategically around the room for seating, and a temporary bar was set up in one corner. Molly was in buffet heaven. They got on line and circled the buffet, filling up their plates. Matt found a small table by the windows overlooking the terrace, and as they sat down, Molly realized they were on the same side of the house as the ballroom, and the terrace must run along the length of the house. She unrolled a cloth napkin, took out the silverware, and nodded politely to two plump, middle-aged women seated at the table next to them. One had gray hair and the other brown, but they both had the same wide, toothy smiles, and Molly thought they had to be sisters. The one with the gray hair said to her, "Isn't it wonderful being here at Misty Vale? I'm Agnes, by the way, and this is my sister Emily." Molly introduced herself and Matt, then said, "Yes, it is wonderful. Emily and I visited the Gordon Museum last summer, and we wondered what the inside of the house looked like. It's beyond what we expected. So beautiful. It's a shame Natasha doesn't open it to the public." "I said the same thing to someone yesterday," Molly said. Emily said, "I've heard she's an introvert and likes to keep to herself, unless she's putting on one of these charity dues. We heard she gave the pediatric unit at the hospital a check for $10,000. Her sister sighed. "It must be nice to have so much money you can give it away." Emily fanned her face. "Is it hot in here, or am I having a hot flash?" "It's hot in here," Molly said. Agnes nodded. "And it's getting warmer by the minute as more people come in." Matt said, "Ladies, you might be interested to know that Natasha Gordon is walking into the room right now." The sisters sat up straight in their chairs. Molly did too. The photographs she'd seen of Natasha online didn't do justice to her beauty or grace. She seemed to float across the floor in a striking red gown, her white hair worn in a loose chignon at her neck. She held her head high, her shoulders back, nodding and smiling at her guests as she made her way to the French doors leading out to the terrace. Agnes said, "Oh, good. I think she's going to open the doors to let in some air." To their relief, Natasha flung open the doors, and immediately a cool breeze moved through the room. Natasha didn't stop to talk to anyone. She continued to smile politely as she walked through the dining room and went back out to the main hall. The sisters sighed deeply. Emily said, "I feel like I saw a ghost, the way she moved in and out of here, like walking on air. Isn't she stunning? It's hard to believe she's 64. We're the same age, and I don't look half as good." Molly glanced at Matt, who winked at her. The two sisters had finished their meal and got up to leave, wishing them a good evening. When Molly and Matt were done eating, she said, "I saw a lot of yummy desserts. If you hold the table, I'll get you something. What would you like? Cake? Pie?" "Why don't you make one plate for both of us to share, and take a little of everything?" he said. "Oh, and maybe a bowl of the bread pudding with caramel sauce." Molly stood up and kissed him. "I love you," she said. He laughed. "You love that I love sweets, and I love you too. I'll be right back." Molly walked past the tall row of windows that overlooked the terrace, her mind on cake and pie and cookies, when suddenly she saw something fly past in her peripheral vision, hitting the flagstones on the terrace with a loud thud. She instantly froze. Then a woman screamed, and a man near the open French doors cried out, "Help! We need a doctor! Is anyone a doctor?" Matt jumped up and ran to the door, Molly right behind him. The man by the doors was staring outside. Matt followed his gaze and said, "Call 911." The man took out his cell phone, and Matt and Molly went outside. The cold air felt like a slap to Molly's face. Matt knelt down beside a man's body. He was on his back, his legs bent at an impossible angle, neck twisted to one side. Molly took a step closer to see his face, and gasped when she realized she recognized him. "Matt, that's Curtis Cobb," she said. He looked up. "He's dead. There's nothing I can do for him." At the same time, they both looked up at the house toward the roof. Molly shivered. "Do you think he jumped?" Matt stood. "I think you should go back inside," he said. "I'll wait here with the body for the police to arrive." Molly went back into the dining room and found it had practically cleared out. The people who remained were talking on their phones or taking photos, which annoyed her. She spoke loudly to make sure everyone could hear her. "If you're taking photographs or videos, please stop. A man has died. Show some respect." To her surprise, everyone complied. Maybe they didn't realize what had happened, or what they were recording. She hoped that was the case. She stood there for a moment, feeling restless and a little frightened. She didn't want to leave Matt on the terrace alone with a dead body. She stepped back outside and saw him put his cell phone in his pocket. "Who did you call?" "Lombardi," he said. "He's on his way." Molly was surprised. Lombardi was a homicide detective. "Someone already called 911, she said. "Why did you feel the need to call him?" "Because I trust him," he said. "Do you suspect foul play?" Matt shrugged. "It's not up to me to decide." "That's not a real answer," she said. They heard the clacking sound of heels on the flagstones and turned around. Natasha was hurrying over to them in her bright red dress, her green eyes wide and worried. "I heard a man is hurt. Has an ambulance been called?" "An ambulance isn't going to help him," Matt said. He stepped aside so she could see the body. "I'm very sorry, but he's dead." Natasha stared. "You're sure?" "Yes, I'm afraid so. I'm Dr. Matt Harrison, and this is my wife, Molly Appleby." Natasha's hand went to her throat. "This man is my brother-in-law, Curtis Cobb. His son, my nephew Maxim, is here somewhere." She looked around, as if Maxim might suddenly materialize. "I don't want him to see his father like this." Molly said, "I met Maxim earlier. I can go look for him if you like." Natasha nodded. "Thank you, Molly. I would appreciate it." Molly went out, back to the main hall. People were streaming toward the front door. Word had spread fast that something terrible had happened, and they were hightailing it out of there. By the time she reached the ballroom, she found it was almost empty. Even the band had packed up and gone. She returned to the hall and called out, "Maxim Cobb, are you here?" "Yes, Molly." He came up behind her, his face flushed. "I just heard the news. Is it true? Someone jumped from the roof?" "Oh, Maxim." She hated having to tell him. "I'm so sorry. There's no easy way to say it. But it's your father." She saw that she'd shocked him. He stared at her, his mouth opening and closing without a sound. "I'm not sure what happened," she said quickly. "Maybe he fell." She didn't want to say he'd jumped. She hoped it was an accident. "Where is he?" "On the terrace, outside the dining room." He started to take off, but Molly grabbed his sleeve and held him back. "Don't." "I have to see him," he said. "No, trust me, you don't. Your aunt doesn't want you to." Maxim rubbed his hands over his face. "This can't be happening. It just can't." "When did you last see him?" "When I introduced him to you. He went off to find Hattie, his girlfriend. I didn't see him again." He ran a hand through his hair. "I wasn't there for my mother when she died. But I'm here now. I want to see my father." He marched off down the hall at a fast pace. Molly tried to keep up with him, but her heels slowed her down. She thought about taking them off, but then she was in the dining room and saw Maxim talking to Matt, who was standing like a guard at the French doors, blocking him. She didn't see Natasha, and wondered where she'd gone. She went over to them and heard Matt say, "The police are on their way. It really would be better if you stayed in the house. Your aunt doesn't want you to see your father this way." "Where is she?" "She's waiting for the police at the front door." Maxim wiped tears away from his face with the back of his hand. "I can't leave my father out there all alone." Matt said, "I'll stay with him. Molly, can you find Maxim a seat?" "Yes, of course." She took Maxim by the arm and gently led him to a table far away from the windows. Maxim didn't resist. He sat down on a chair and put his head in his hands. She went to the bar, which had been abandoned, and poured him a tall glass of water. She handed it to him, and he drank it down. He sat there quietly, staring into space, and Molly let him be. She knew he was having a hard time processing what had happened. She was, too. It seemed like a long time before Natasha returned with Lombardi, the coroner, and 2 members of the coroner's team who were wheeling a gurney. Lombardi saw Molly and nodded to her, but he didn't stop. They went out to the terrace, where Matt was waiting. "That man with the dark hair, the one who nodded to you," Maxim said. Who is he? Detective Anthony Lombardi, she said. You couldn't ask for a better investigator. Maxim looked at her. I told you I'm a fan, Molly. Seriously, I've read all of your articles. The ones you've written about the crimes you've helped the police solve. You've never named the cop in Vermont you've worked with. Is that the guy? Yes, which is why I know you can trust him. But he's a homicide detective. His brow wrinkled. Do you think my father was murdered? I have no idea, she said. I do know Detective Lombardi is very good at his job, and he'll get to the bottom of things. There's nothing for you to worry about. Maxim didn't look convinced, and he was starting to breathe fast. Molly hoped he wasn't going to hyperventilate. I know you're trying to reassure me, but what if it wasn't an accident? He took a couple of deep breaths. Will you investigate my father's death? Will you do that for me? Molly looked at him. Why? Do you think it wasn't an accident? He sat back in the chair. You know the bookstore was about to close. But what you don't know is that my father had a gambling problem and owed a lot of money. Maybe to someone disreputable. Do you think that someone has killed him because he couldn't pay the money back? I don't know. I only found out a few weeks ago, and he didn't go into great detail. I should have known something was wrong. I should have seen the signs, long before my mother died. His voice faded away. Was she ill? No. She died on vacation with my father in Florida. She went out for a late-night swim in the ocean and drowned. Molly was shocked. How awful! I'm so sorry. When did this happen? September 5th, he said. My father wouldn't let me see her body. It was a closed-casket funeral. Molly did a quick calculation in her head and realized his mother had died only 10 weeks ago. Didn't you say your father has a girlfriend? Yes, Hattie Mills. He paused. I know what you're thinking. How could he have a girlfriend so soon after my mother died? They've known each other since high school. They all did. Hattie was my mother's best friend. He glanced over at the hallway door. Her other best friend just walked in. Molly looked over and saw Felix heading their way. He wore gray slacks and a pale blue button-down shirt. As he'd told her, he wasn't a guest for the gala ball. Maxim, I just heard the news, he said. Do you know what happened? No, but the police are here. Hopefully they'll be able to tell me something soon. Felix glanced at Molly. Nice to see you again, he said. Wish it wasn't under these circumstances. Me too, she said. He turned his attention back to Maxim. Have you seen Hattie? I'm worried she doesn't know what's happened. I haven't seen her, Maxim said. Maybe you should go look for her. Yes, right, I'll do that. Maxim's eyes showed he was not interested. He didn't care one way or the other if Hattie was found. Felix shuffled his feet and glanced at the French doors and the crowd of people gathered outside on the terrace. Then he patted Maxim on the shoulder and walked away without another word. When he was gone, Molly asked, Was Felix a good friend of your father? Not really. He was friends with my mother. They grew up together. Felix's mother, Peggy Shaw, works here. I met Felix yesterday at his shop, and he told me she's the cook. He didn't say anything about your mother, only that he knew Natasha. I'm surprised he didn't mention her. We were all devastated by her death, of course, but he's taken it very hard. They were born 2 weeks apart, and when they were little, my grandmother allowed them to play together. My mother always said Felix was the brother she'd never had. How did they meet your father? In high school, freshman year. My grandfather moved the family from New Jersey that year and opened Raris Books. Maxim paused to take a deep breath. I wasn't happy about my father dating Hattie, in case you're wondering. Actually, I should say it's more than dating. She moved in with Dad a week after my mother's funeral, which is why I'm staying here with Aunt Natasha. I didn't want to stay in my mother's house with them. I'm not ready for it. I can see how it could be awkward, Molly said. She wouldn't have been happy either if her mother died and Sean moved another woman into the house they'd shared, especially a week after the funeral. Maxim's cell phone was on the table. It chimed, and he quickly snatched it up. Kurt texted. He wants to know if I'm having fun. His eyes filled with tears. He glanced over at the French doors. "Detective Lombardy's going to be a while, I suppose. I'd like to call Kurt to tell him what's happened." "Of course." Molly stood up. "I'll leave you to it." Chapter 4. Molly slept badly that night. She tossed and turned, thinking about Curtis Cobb, his dead wife, rarest books, and Maxim, the dutiful son who came home to help his father save his store. By 6 o'clock, she gave up, rolled over, and checked the baby cam on the bedside table. Tyler was asleep in his crib. He's like his father, she thought. A truck could drive right through the house and they'd sleep right through it. Her 2 cats, Merlin and Griffin, cracked their eyes open as she got out of bed, but they didn't move. They watched her put on her robe and cinch the belt, and closed their eyes as she slipped her feet into her fluffy slippers. No one wanted to get up at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning, not even the cats. Molly padded downstairs, filled a tea kettle with water, and set it on the stovetop. She looked out the window over the sink. It was still dark out, and in the dim light of dawn that spilled across the yard, she could see the skeletal branches of trees that had shed their leaves. Molly loved their home. It was a 1920s brick Tudor that belonged to Sean. He'd completely renovated it when he'd bought it, but he had never lived there. She felt fortunate that they were able to rent it from him. If Matt was offered a permanent position at the hospital, they planned to buy the house. It was beautiful and homey, and had everything they needed: 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, a separate office, and an open-concept gourmet kitchen with a sunny dining room and great room. There was also the added bonus of the in-law suite over the garage, where her mother had lived until she'd married Sean, and which Starling now occupied. Molly unplugged her phone, which she'd left charging on the counter. Then she took a mug out of the cupboard and sat at the kitchen table, stretching out her long legs. Picking up her phone, she checked it to see if Lombardy had left a message. After she and Matt had given him their statements, he'd told them to go home. She'd wanted to stay, in case Maxim needed anything, but as Matt had pointed out, Lombardy had already sent him and Natasha to another room to be questioned, and there really wasn't anything else they could do. The kettle whistled, and she got up and turned off the burner. Opening her tea chest, she chose a mint tea and dropped the bag in her mug. She poured boiling water over the bag, and while it steeped, texted Lombardy, "Are you awake?" Her phone rang almost immediately. "I'm not only awake," he said. "I'm about a half-mile from your house on my way to work. What are you doing up? I thought you liked to sleep in on Sundays." "I couldn't sleep. Would you like to join me for a cup of coffee or tea?" "I love a coffee. I'll be right there." Molly went into the great room and stood by the front door, waiting for him to arrive. She didn't want him ringing the doorbell and waking everyone up. The homes across the street were dark and quiet. She felt like everyone was sleeping in the world, except for her and Lombardy. When she saw the headlights turn down the street, she opened the door. Lombardy's sedan pulled into the driveway. He walked up the path, and she held the door open for him. She noticed another car farther down the road, driving slowly. So, they weren't the only 2 people awake after all, she thought. Lombardy walked into the foyer, and as she began to close the door, she saw the other car stop in front of Mrs. Houghton's house next door. It was a silver sedan, and she didn't recognize it. Mrs. Houghton's daughter, who visited her elderly mother often, drove a red minivan. Lombardy took off his coat and hung it in the closet. "I hate late-night calls," he said. "I didn't leave Misty Vale until 1:30. Molly shut the door behind him. "Did you get any sleep?" "Only a few hours, but I shouldn't complain. It's better than nothing." They went into the kitchen, and she walked over to the deluxe coffee machine Matt had given her for her birthday. "Would you like a cappuccino or a regular coffee?" "A cappuccino, if it's not too much trouble." "No trouble at all. It's taken me a while to get the hang of it, but I feel like a pro now. This machine not only grinds the beans, it also makes the milky foam. All I have to do is press the right buttons." "I'll leave you to it." He sat down at the table and yawned. He might not have gotten enough sleep, but the fatigue did nothing to diminish Lombardy's good looks. With his dark hair, olive complexion, and dark brown eyes, he could easily pass as a male model. Molly made a cappuccino and set the cup in front of him. He took a sip and sighed. "This is really good. Thank you." He took another sip. "So why are you up? Is Tyler all right?" "Yes, your godson is sound asleep, like his father, and Starling, and the 2 cats. She put her mug into the microwave. Her tea had gone cold. "I couldn't stop thinking about Curtis. I feel so guilty." "About what?" "That he might have killed himself because his shop was going under, and I refused to help him by writing an article." "You told me he was rude to you and insulted the magazine. You've got nothing to feel guilty about." "But I could have told him I'd do it, if only for Maxim's sake." The microwave beeped, and she took her mug out. "It's not like Curtis would have been the first dealer I've interviewed who wasn't a nice person. I've worked with some doozies before, as you well know." "Yeah, I know. But the thing is, Molly, in this case, you have nothing to feel guilty about. Curtis Cobb didn't do a swan dive off the roof because you didn't want to write an article about him. Someone pushed him out of a 3rd-floor window." Molly sat down. "How can the coroner be certain?" "He said if he'd fallen out the window by accident, he would have landed feet first, trying to catch himself. But he didn't land that way. He landed on his back, hitting his head. It looks like someone gave him a big old push right out the window." "Great. Now I feel bad, because I feel good it wasn't my fault." "There's no winning with you," he said, and laughed. "You should see the size of the window. It's enormous, almost as big as a door." "Sounds like whoever killed Curtis must have known it was there," she said. "Although I just remembered when Mom and I visited the Gordon Museum, we took a stroll through one of the formal gardens behind the house, so I suppose anyone with a ticket could have seen the window." She sipped her coffee. "Did Maxim tell you he's staying at the manor house?" "Yes, he did." "He told me he didn't want to stay with his father, because he'd moved his girlfriend into his mother's house. I wouldn't feel comfortable staying with them either. Did he tell you his mother died in a drowning accident a couple of months ago?" He smiled. "Yes, Molly." "I'm talking too much, aren't I?" "I don't mind. I appreciate you sharing information with me." Molly wished he'd share more information with her, but she knew it was a fine line he was walking, talking to her about a murder investigation. "What did you think of Natasha?" "She was calm, unemotional, very matter-of-fact," he said. "She wasn't happy the party ended the way it did. She told me she was disappointed the gala ball was interrupted by Curtis's untimely death, that it was most unfortunate." Molly was stunned. "She said that?" "Yep. We found Hattie Mills, by the way. She was in the library, sitting in the dark, drinking wine out of a bottle." "Sounds like she was in shock," Molly said. "Did Maxim tell you he thinks his father was gambling and owed a lot of money to someone?" He nodded. "Yes, I'm aware of it." "Is gambling legal in Vermont?" "We don't have state-licensed or tribal casinos, but it's legal for players to gamble on online poker sites. What's illegal is a moneylender charging outrageously high interest rates on loans and using blackmail or threats to get it repaid." Molly sipped her tea. "Do you suspect any of the people you talked to last night?" "You know how it is. Everyone's a suspect until they're not." He yawned again and rubbed his eyes. "I've got my hands full with this one. There were 122 tickets sold for last night's event. Plus, Natasha hired a catering company, which adds an additional 12 people to my ever-growing list." "Did you meet Peggy Shaw, the cook? She was supervising last night." He nodded. Molly waited to see if he'd tell her anything about Peggy. When he didn't, she went on. "I met her son Felix on Friday. Starling and I stopped into his shop, Monkey Paws Antiques. I saw him again last night. He was there to help his mother. Maxim told me he went to school with his parents, but when I asked him if he was friends with his father, he said no, he was friends with his mother, even though they've all known each other since high school." "I did talk to Peggy and Felix," he said. There was a long silence as he drank his coffee and Molly finished her tea. She tried one more time. Maxim told me his mother and Felix were born 2 weeks apart, and they grew up together, like brother and sister. He finished his coffee and set his cup down on the table. Molly gave up. He wasn't going to tell her anything. She took the cup and got up to wash their dishes. She said over her shoulder, "I should tell you, Maxim asked me if I'd investigate his father's death, if it turned out not to be an accident." "I know, Molly. He told me." "Oh." She finished washing their cups and put them on the drain board to dry. "What do you think?" She turned around to face him. "Should I? Or would you rather I stayed away from your case?" "I can't stop you from doing your job as a reporter," he said. "But after last summer, when you were almost killed, I think you should sit this one out. It could be dangerous, digging around for clues on your own." "I'll keep you apprised of what I find out." He shook his head. "I don't know why you ask my permission," he said. "You always do what you want anyway. Just be careful, okay?" "I'm always careful." She knew she sounded defensive, but what was she supposed to do? Sit every case out on the off chance it could turn dangerous? As if he'd read her mind, he said, "You've gotten caught up in some dicey situations before, and I don't want to be the one who has to tell your mother something bad has happened to you." "Well, maybe if I had more information to go on, I'd have an easier time staying safe. Will you share anything with me?" "I'll give you as much as I can, as long as it doesn't jeopardize my investigation." Molly wasn't surprised by his answer, but it made her wish she was a cop, working alongside him, privy to what he knew, able to access the police department's specialists and data collection systems. With her limited resources, she'd have to narrow her investigation to Curtis's family members, and friends, if he had any. "You look disappointed," he said. "I can tell you that for the time being, publicly, we're calling Curtis's death suspicious, but I did inform Natasha and Maxim that I'm investigating it as a homicide." Molly waited to see if he'd expand on this, but he wasn't inclined. He stood up and stretched his arms over his head. She supposed she should be grateful he'd told her anything at all. "Thanks again for the coffee," he said. "I've got to get to the station." Chapter 5. An hour after Lombardi had gone, Molly finished reading the entire newspaper, and her stomach growled. She checked the baby monitor on the kitchen counter. Tyler was still asleep, and she didn't hear any rustlings from Matt or Starling. She opened the cupboard and took out the ingredients to make waffles, then got a package of sausages from the refrigerator. She mixed up the waffle batter and put 6 sausages in a pan. She knew as the sausages sizzled on the stovetop and the aroma drifted upstairs, signs of life would soon be heard. In less than 5 minutes, floorboards creaked above her head, and water ran in the master bath. A few minutes later a door opened, and the cats bounded down the stairs into the kitchen, skidding to a stop, twirling around her ankles, meowing for their breakfast. As Molly fed them, Matt walked in holding Tyler in his arms. They were still in their pajamas, and their matching sandy blonde hair was sticking straight up on their heads. Molly thought they were both adorable. "Did I wake you?" she asked. "Yes, you sneak. You knew the sausages would get me up. Not that it mattered. I wasn't sleeping well, not after the night we had." "Could have fooled me. You were snoring up a storm." "Sorry." He kissed her. "Thanks for making breakfast. Did you sleep well?" "No, terrible." She preheated the griddle. "I got up around 6, texted Lombardi to see if he was up, and he stopped by to see me on his way to work. He was at Misty Vale a long time and didn't get much sleep." Matt put Tyler in his high chair. "Did he tell you anything about the case?" "He said the coroner believes Curtis was pushed out of a 3rd-floor window. He's treating the case as a homicide, although publicly it's being called a suspicious death." Matt slipped Tyler's bib over his head. "I'm sorry to hear it, but not surprised." He walked over to Molly and took the spatula out of her hand. "I'll stir the sausages. You're much better at making the waffles." "Why aren't you surprised?" "Given his injuries and the trajectory of the fall, and the way his body was angled, I thought it looked suspicious." Molly poured batter on the griddle and closed the lid. "So that's why you called Lombardi. You did think it was murder. Why didn't you tell me? It's not my job to come to that conclusion. He pushed the sausages around in the pan. You know, there were more than 100 people at the ball last night, including Curtis's inner circle of family and friends, which means Lombardi has a lot of suspects to consider. She paused. I've decided I'm going to tell Maxim I'll write an article about his father. I'll start with the people closest to him. Matt looked at her. Is this your way of telling me you're going to investigate his murder? Yes. Maxim asked me to, if it turned out not to be an accident, which it wasn't. Lombardi's reluctantly okay with it, as long as I'm doing my job as a reporter. I'm sure it won't be dangerous. You forgot to add dangerous this time, he said. Matt, you don't have to convince me, Molly. You know you always have my full support. All I ask is that you stay alert and be extra careful. You sound like Lombardi. He's worried that after the last case, how I almost got killed. Her voice trailed away. You can't blame us for being worried about you. If you feel like you're getting in too deep, or you have a bad feeling about someone, back off, tell Lombardi, and let him handle it, all right? I will, I promise. Your mother won't be pleased, he said. She's been a lot more vocal about you getting involved in murder investigations since Tyler was born. She always comes around, Molly smiled. You all do. Her mother liked to complain, but she also enjoyed being a sounding board on the cases she investigated, and Molly valued her opinion. That's because you've recruited the entire family to become armchair detectives, and we all want to try to help you crack the case. He turned the sausages over. Then there's Swanson, of course, who will be thrilled. A new murder investigation and the magazine's circulation numbers will shoot straight up. Molly made a face. That sounds terrible when you say it that way. Murder is terrible, and so is Swanson. I'll call him later, she said. When will you tell your mother? They're driving back from Boston tomorrow. Her mother and Sean had gone to Boston for a long weekend to visit friends of Sean's. I'll wait for her to get back. Just think, if they hadn't had those plans, they would have been at the gala ball with us when Curtis died. Then you wouldn't have to tell her anything. She'd already know. They were lucky not to be there, she said. I wish we hadn't seen it. Matt gave the sausages another stir. So, who are you going to talk to first? Hattie and Natasha. After breakfast, I'll drive out to Missyvale. Isn't it kind of soon after Curtis's death? Don't you think they'll be struggling with their emotions? Sometimes the shock has to wear off before people realize what's happened. Sometimes the best time to talk to them is when they're in that state, where they're trying to process what's happened, because they're actually trying to make sense of it, and they're thinking out loud, sorting it out in their own minds. Wow. Okay, then. I guess you should let Maxim know you're going to write the article and do some snooping around. Matt turned the burner off, and using the spatula, he moved the sausages to a plate Molly had covered with a paper towel to absorb the grease. How are the waffles doing? She lifted the lid to check. Almost done. They heard the door to the in-law apartment open, and a moment later Starling walked into the kitchen. Her hair was pulled up in a messy bun, and she'd thrown on sweatpants and a long-sleeved t-shirt. She went over to Tyler and gave him a big kiss. Then she looked at Molly and Matt and smiled. So, you two lovebirds, how was your evening out? Starling and Tyler had both been asleep when they'd come home in the middle of the night. She had no idea what had happened. Did you have fun at the ball? Matt said, Oh, you know, it was a typical night out with Molly. Another body, another murder investigation. Starling's jaw dropped. Really? Sit down, Molly said. Have some waffles and sausages. I'll tell you about it. Chapter 6. After breakfast, Matt insisted on cleaning up the kitchen, and Starling said she'd take Tyler for a walk in his stroller. They knew Molly wanted to phone Maxim. He sounded groggy when he picked up, and she realized he must not have gotten much sleep either. I woke you up, didn't I? Yeah, but I was going to get up soon anyway. I was going to call you to let you know Detective Lombardi believes my father was murdered. I know, she said. I spoke to him. I told him I'm going to help you. You will? His voice perked up. You'll investigate? Yes, but as a reporter, writing an article about your father. I won't be officially working with the police. I will share information. Will Detective Lombardi share information with you? As long as it doesn't jeopardize his case, he usually throws me a few crumbs. Sometimes more than crumbs, Molly thought, but she didn't want to get either of their hopes up. I can't thank you enough for doing this, he said. Nothing makes sense at the moment. My mind is fuzzy. But maybe it's a lack of sleep. Is there anything I can do to help you get started? Yes, actually, there is. I'd like to talk to Hattie and Natasha, preferably this morning. If you could tell them I'm going to write a human interest story about your father for the magazine, and you'd appreciate it if they'd talk to me, that would be a big help. Aunt Natasha didn't get to bed until around 5. I'm not sure she'll want to talk to you today, but I'll ask her when I see her. As for Hattie, I'll call her right now. She's been trying to be nice to me, so I think she'll agree to do it as a favor. I'll wait to hear back from you. 5 minutes later, Maxim sent her a text message. Hattie will see you at 11. She lives in a cottage on the estate. Turn right at the entrance. Go about a half-mile. You'll see a stone house on your left. Molly had no trouble finding the cottage. It was on the other side of a crested hill, down a lane bordered by trees, a small stone house with lace curtains in the windows, a covered porch, and an ivy-covered chimney. As she stepped out of her Audi, she smelled wood burning and saw a thin ribbon of smoke rising from the chimney. The car she'd parked next to was a white Mercedes sedan with a license plate HM, which she assumed belonged to Hattie Mills. Hattie must have been waiting for her, because she'd barely stepped onto the porch when she opened the door. Molly knew she was 50 or so, but she looked younger, with curly blonde hair expertly dyed, beautiful dark brown eyes, and a cute button nose. She wore a red silk kimono and gray leggings, and her feet were bare. "Come on in," Hattie said. She stepped away from the door, and Molly walked into a narrow hall. A staircase was straight ahead, and there were coat hooks on the wall, no closet. Molly hung her coat up on a hook and joined Hattie in the adjoining living room, where a fire was starting to peter out in a stone fireplace. Hattie flopped down on a brown leather sofa and propped her bare feet up on a rustic coffee table. Molly liked the room's dark wood-beamed ceilings and colorful Persian rugs on the wide plank oak floors. Bookshelves lined most of the walls, filled with aged, leather-bound books. She handed Hattie her business card and sat on one of 2 blue-covered chairs on either side of the fire. Hattie read her card out loud. Molly Appleby, senior staff writer for Collectors Weekly. She looked at her under long lashes, her eyes clear, not a hint of red in them. If she had been crying, there was no sign of it. She didn't even look tired. Maxim told me you're going to write an article about Curtis, she said. I can't imagine why anyone would want to read about him. His store was going down the tubes, and he was in debt up to his eyeballs. Heck, I don't even want to read it, and I was in love with him. She placed Molly's card on the coffee table. So what's this really about? Why are you doing this? As a favor to Maxim, Molly said. She wasn't going to tell her she was investigating Curtis's death, or that she was on her list of suspects. I thought it might help him get through this difficult time. I know he lost his mother recently, too. Hattie nodded. Yeah, it's like there's a big black cloud hanging over the Cobb family. Poor Maxim. I met Curtis briefly last night. Maxim introduced us, but I don't know anything about him, other than he owned Raris books. Not quite true, but let's see what you have to say, she thought. I'd like to know more about him, and your relationship. What kind of man was he, and why do you think his business was failing? Before I say anything, I need a drink. Hattie stood up and pulled her kimono a little tighter around her waist. How about you? I'm going to have a vodka with cranberry juice. It's a little early for me. I'll have a glass of water. Suit yourself. Hattie shrugged and walked off to the kitchen, where she made her drink. She came back into the living room, handed Molly a glass of water, and repositioned herself on the sofa, this time crossing her legs, swinging a bare foot in Molly's direction. She took a long, slurpy sip of her drink and said, "Ah, that's good." She leaned into the cushions. "Where should I start?" "How did you meet?" "Okay, that's easy. The summer before freshman year of high school, his family moved into a house down the street from where I lived. I met him one day when I was out riding my bike. He was sitting on the steps of his house looking bored out of his mind. We became friends, and when school started in the fall, I introduced him around." "Did you introduce him to Galena and Felix?" "Yes, I did." Hattie took another sip of her drink. "I told Curtis about Galena before I introduced him to her. I warned him not to get too close to her. But as soon as they met, I knew it was a lost cause." "Why did you warn him not to get close to her?" "Because I knew her parents would never accept him, and I didn't want him screwing up Galena's life. Not that I blame her for falling in love with him. Curtis was really good-looking, and he had this mysterious aura about him. He had a way of drawing you in, but never quite giving you enough information about himself, so you'd always come back wanting more. All the girls had a crush on him." "Did her parents object to him?" "You really don't know a thing about them, do you?" Hattie shook her head. "They hated Curtis because his father was a shop owner, and his mother worked at the library. He was a threat to their plans to marry Galena off to another rich kid, someone like her, inherited wealth and all. When Galena was 13, they started sending her to a ritzy summer camp in Switzerland so she could meet Mr. Right." "I see. Curtis was Mr. Wrong." "Ah, so you do understand." "Yes, sadly, I do," Molly said. "Did you go to a private school?" "No, public all the way. I can see from your expression you're surprised. You think the Gordons must have sent Galena to private school. But oh no, that was part of their plan to make the locals like them. They pretended to be like everyone else, but only a fool would believe it. They weren't normal people, or normal parents. They were always traveling, collecting artwork, buying antiques. Galena hardly saw them when she was growing up, but even from afar, they controlled her life. You know, I think she spent more time with her nanny and Peggy the cook than her own parents. Isn't that awful?" "Yes, it is. What about Natasha? Did they control her, too?" Hattie waved her hand in the air. Her long fingernails were artificial and painted red. "Natasha was 12 years older than Galena. She was the quiet one, the good girl who never gave them any trouble. Galena felt like an oops baby. She thought her parents would have been perfectly happy with Natasha being an only child." Molly didn't like what she was hearing. Galena's parents sounded like terrible people. "When did they find out Galena and Curtis were a couple?" "They started going steady freshman year, and they managed to keep it a secret for 4 years. He gave Galena a ring, and she'd take it off before she went home." Hattie grinned. "They never had a clue. The only person who knew they were a couple, besides me and Felix, was Peggy, and maybe some kids at school, but no one would ever rat out Galena." "She told Peggy, the cook?" "Yeah, she was really close to her. It wasn't until senior year that she told her parents. Because of the prom. She had to tell them because she wanted to go with Curtis. Saying they weren't pleased would be an understatement, but they did give their permission, because they didn't know how long she'd been seeing him, and they hoped it would fizzle out by the end of the school year, which, of course, it didn't." Molly thought it was a shame that Galena had felt the need to hide her relationship with Curtis. She couldn't imagine not telling her mother if someone had asked her to go study in high school. "Did Galena tell her sister she was seeing Curtis?" "Are you kidding? She knew better than to confide in Natasha. She would have snitched on her and told their parents. She was such a do-gooder. Like I said, the only adult Galena trusted was Peggy." "You said Natasha was 12 years older. What was she doing in those days?" "Living at home, like always," Hattie said. "Natasha was a homebody. She never went to college. All she ever wanted to do was live at Misty Vale with her parents, collect art and antiques, and host fundraisers. Talk about a chip off the old block. Her parents loved it, though. In fact, they groomed her for the job because they wanted her to take over the estate when they were gone. She took another sip of her drink, peering at Molly over the rim of the glass. But here I am, rambling on and on about the Gordons. What have they got to do with Curtis? It helps me build a picture of him, and the people in his life, past and present. Were you disappointed he didn't ask you to go study with him? Of course. I was crazy about him, too. A smile suddenly lit Hattie's face. But I had him to myself every summer, while Galena was in Switzerland. We saw each other every day. She sighed deeply. I used to long for summer. It was the only time I could have him all to myself. Were you just friends, or? Oh, we were much more than friends. He was the first boy I ever kissed, or ever really loved. For the first time, a sheen of tears glazed her eyes. Perhaps the shock of Curtis dying so unexpectedly was beginning to wear off. Reality was setting in. Did Galena know you and Curtis were seeing each other while she was abroad? God, no. At least, I don't think so. We never told her, and she never said anything about it. We were very discreet. We didn't want to hurt her. You didn't feel bad, sneaking around behind her back? Hattie frowned. We were teenagers. Hormones were raging. She wasn't here, and I was. It wasn't my fault her parents sent her away. Let's talk about something else. Okay. Tell me about Felix's relationship with Galena. Did her parents worry she might develop an attachment to the cook's son? Never. Felix was always close to Galena. They grew up together. But they knew they didn't have to worry about him running off with her. Not if his mother wanted to keep her job. Peggy was a single mom and raised him on her own. Felix knew better than to overstep his bounds. Friendship was approved, but anything else, even a hint of it, and they would have sacked Peggy. Hattie set her glass on the table and got up to put a few more logs on the fire. She settled back onto the couch and lifted the glass to her lips, taking a long drink. That's not to say there weren't feelings on Felix's part. Galena thought of him as a brother, a best friend, but nothing more. But he probably fell in love with her before he could even talk. Was he jealous of Curtis? Oh, yeah. They never hit it off. When Galena and Curtis announced their engagement, he took her parents' side and tried to talk her out of it. He told her not to underestimate them, that they meant it when they said they were going to cut off her allowance and disown her if she married him. Galena wasn't happy about losing her inheritance, but what could she do? She was in love. As for Felix, he had to accept it, or risk losing her forever. Did you try to talk Galena out of marrying Curtis? No, because I knew it wouldn't do any good. The 4 years she was in college, her parents tried to derail the relationship by introducing her to more suitable men. It drove Galena crazy, but she put up with it, because as long as she went on dates, they weren't nagging her about breaking up with Curtis. She was determined to marry him. What did she think would happen when she did? She thought they'd come around to accepting him, Hattie said. She took another sip of her drink. They went ahead and married a few months after they graduated college, and when they got home from their honeymoon, she found a letter in her mailbox from her parents' attorneys. They told her they'd...
When you get through high school and go off to college, I'll be able to get my GED. He always says when he studies my report cards. Then the Dixon boys will be first class all the way. I don't want to disappoint him, because that idea seems to mean so much to him, but I don't see that. Ever. 2. The worst part about being broke and not having a regular place to live is that I've always wanted a dog. But dogs, even more than people, because you can't explain the situation to a dog and expect him to understand, need a warm place to sleep and good food every day. If I could do that for a dog, it would mean I'd have a home in 3 squares too. So, I think wanting a dog is a better dream than hoping for a college education, for a guy like me. Eric has always been great about finding cheap fun. Cheap is good, but free is better, so we've always liked to visit the dog run in the park. We watch all the dogs and pick out which one we'd want to be ours. Eric likes the little ones that are feisty and don't know they're small enough to be eaten whole by the bigger dogs. I like the big ones that look like if you could hear their thoughts, they'd be thinking, "Dun dun dun," in a really happy, punchy little hum. Even when Eric's at work, I still like to go to the dog park. When I'm alone, I take my sketchbook. I've been drawing, or trying to draw, ever since I saw a book at the library about paintings in caves in France. They were the first art ever, about hunting and hurting and dying, and the way I could see the people's lives in the paintings made me want to do the same thing. Eric has never once hit me, but he said he would beat me raw if he ever caught me stealing. Eric's rule number 3. It's nothing but trouble to want what you don't already have. I think he meant don't take money or food or clothes. I'm pretty sure he doesn't consider it stealing when I take sketchbooks and the soft, smudgy pencils from Mrs. Fitzgerald's art room at school. Because he knows I have to draw or I'll lose it. When I'm hungry, cold, dirty, or sick to death of wondering where we're going to sleep tonight, I can pull out one of my sketchbooks. A little while later, I'm okay again. I only ever get the tiniest thing right, like the way Ms. Meyer's hair falls over her forehead when she corrects papers at her desk during English, or the stretched-out shadow the window panes cast on the floor during math. That's enough, though. Sometimes. My best work always seems to be when I draw dogs. I got the crooked back leg of a poodle just perfect one day, and I nailed the snout and jaw of a Rottweiler even though he was running around the whole time I tried to draw him. So I'm sitting near the dog run after school, drawing, when a guy in a crummy white SUV pulls up. He jumps out and opens the back door, and 5 or 6 dogs tumble out and race to the dog run's gate. He slams the door shut and follows them. I've seen him before. I recognize all the regulars. He's the only one who ever brings more than 1 or 2 dogs, though, and the weirdest thing is that he brings a different group all the time. I don't pay much attention to the people, though, not when there are so many dog ears and dog tails and so much dog fur to try to get just right. I'm studying the dogs, then glancing down to try to catch the shapes and the colors and even the sounds of them with my pencil. I must be staring at the guy, or at least the dogs close to him, because he waves and heads over. I've got my art gear spread out on the bench, so I can't pick up and leave before he gets to me. I'm not what you call friendly to begin with, and Eric has made it clear that most strangers are not safe for people like us. But this guy's got a nice smile. Real. Not like some adults who smile with their mouth, but not their eyes, and not like the guys Eric has warned me about. Bad, mean, sick people with no business talking to kids, who smile with just a little too much teeth showing. This guy just looks like he's in some bubble of clean. Crazy, I know, and nothing I've ever seen before. But it's there. I can see it in the way he jumps sideways to miss the chihuahua who scampered in front of him, and the way he laughs when the big mutt gooses him in the butt in that sniffy way dogs have. "Hey," he says when he's finally standing in front of me. "I'm Greg. I've seen you drawing before. Can I take a look?" Even though I've never shown anyone but Eric my sketches, I nod to the sketchbook closest to Greg. He picks it up and sits on the bench, but not too close, which makes me feel safe. He leans back and crosses his ankles as he turns each page. "That's Nini." He points to a sketch of a terrier. "And this?" He flips to one of a pug. "Is Gretchen." I scan the dog park, looking for them. He catches my look. "They're not here today. Nini got adopted day before yesterday, and Gretchen was in a funk and stayed back to pout and think about what she did." He laughs at his own joke. I frown, not getting it. "Gretchen bit Slade today when I had them in the outdoor pen, and so she lost her field trip privileges until she can be better behaved." I'm more confused than ever, and he can tell. "I'm Greg," he repeats, and puts out a hand for me to shake, and I do, slowly. "And I volunteer at the animal shelter over on Deal. I bring a handful of dogs over here to run after my shift. It's not really allowed," he shrugs. "But what the powers that be don't know won't hurt them. And those guys deserve a better place to play than on concrete behind chain-link fences." He's still carefully turning the pages of the sketchbook and nodding. "You've really captured their spirits. I don't know art, but I do know dogs, and this is really good." "Thanks." I don't know what to say. "What's your name?" he asks. "Jamie." "That's a good name for an artist. One name, like Christo, is memorable." "I'm not an artist." Normally, I don't like talking with someone I don't know, but the way he turns the pages and looks at the pictures and then back at the dogs makes me feel good. "Sure you are. I'll prove it. What's the going price for your pieces?" My eyes open wide as he digs out his wallet. "I'm not kidding. I'll buy some. We put pictures of the dogs online along with descriptions to try to find them homes, but the photos, even if I do take most of them myself, are crap and don't do justice to the dogs. Not the way your drawings do. You could help them find homes." Home. He's asking me to help find homes for the dogs. Me. "You could draw them in their pens if you wanted. It must be kind of cold sitting on the bench." I'm still thinking. Money. For my drawings. Homes. For the dogs, at least. "Well, look," he says, pulling a few bills from his wallet. "Just think about it. Since you haven't named a price, I'm going to make you an offer. I'll give you $5 each for the pictures of Gretchen, Rip," he carefully tugs her picture out of my sketchbook, "Simon, Pappy, and AJ." He gently tears out the other 3 pages and hands me a 10 and 2 5s. He looks so happy that I don't know what to say. Plus, I have $20 in my hand. "I've got to get the dogs back pretty soon. Come by the shelter someday. I'm usually there from 3 until 6. And then I hear a voice, mine, say, "Yeah, I think I will." 3. Greg drives off with the dogs, and I sit looking at the $20. I could buy 4 pizzas. I could even go to a grocery store and get... I don't actually know what I could get. Eric and I don't go to grocery stores, so I'm not sure I'd know how to shop or what I'd do with the stuff when I got it. Eric's rule number 4. Never own more than you can carry or stash in less than a minute, and never stash anything you can't afford to lose. Then I think about Eric's little notebook and his pouch of money and how worried he looks when he pulls either of them out. So I tuck the cash in my jeans pocket. Maybe Eric's not the only one in this family with an income now. I don't want to tell Eric about the money until I make more and can help him with the apartment fund, but I can't keep this to myself. So I go see Grandpa. His old folks' home is just a few blocks away from the dog park, and I've got some time before I need to meet Eric back at Trudy's for the night. Grandpa has always been the one fun and wonderful thing in our lives. When we were little, he came over to get us one Sunday like usual, and well, he didn't like what he saw. He didn't say a word, just turned very white, and he picked up an empty paper bag from the liquor store that was on the floor and walked over and around the bodies, sleeping it off, snoring on the floor, and he gathered up anything that looked like it belonged to 2 kids. There wasn't much. He took us away with him that day, and we lived with him until 2 years ago, and it was great. We ate frozen dinners together and watched sports on TV, and he helped us with our homework, and it was quiet and safe and clean. We had birthdays, Christmas, new clothes now and then. No one screamed, and no one hit, and nobody looked at you funny and tried to touch you in places and ways they shouldn't. He used to take us on the weekends to see the guard dogs at the junkyard down on Washington Avenue. Maybe that's where Eric learned how to make cheap fun. I don't know why we thought that was such a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon, to walk up and down that stretch of Washington where there were 3 or 4 junkyards and what we thought were huge and ferocious attack dogs, but I remember thinking that we had the coolest Grandpa in the world. But then Grandpa got sick. Eric and I got home from school one day and overheard the neighbors talking about how Grandpa had had a stroke and had been taken away in an ambulance. I didn't know what that meant, but Eric did. A blood vessel broke in Grandpa's head, Jamie. He's gone to the hospital for a while to get better. We have to keep a low profile until he's well enough to come back home, or social services will find out. We'll be taken away and put in foster homes, maybe separated. We can't have that. I'm scared. You never have to be scared when I'm around, he told me. You just do what I say, and everything will be fine. We have to pretend that someone, like from our family, is staying with us, though. People get weird about kids on their own. Don't let on we're alone, okay? Eric's the one person I could always trust, so I believed him. We couldn't visit Grandpa in the hospital because we were kids, but Eric made his voice low and pretended he was a grown-up and called every day to find out how Grandpa was doing. Grandpa couldn't talk, they said. For a couple of weeks, we held things together at the apartment without him, eating canned food and setting the alarm clock so we wouldn't be late for school while we waited for him to come back. Grandpa never did come home, though. When he finally got released from the hospital, he was sent straight to the old folks' home. Eric hung up the phone after he found out and turned to me. Something broke in Grandpa's head when he had the stroke, Eric told me. He's too confused to take care of himself. We could take care of him, I said. We take care of each other. Eric shook his head. He's never going to get well enough to live with us again. We can live here by ourselves, I tried. They said the social worker from the care center is going to come and pack up Grandpa's things because he didn't have an emergency name in his medical records. But what about us? We live here too. They can't just kick us out. No one really knows we've been living with Grandpa, Jamie. It wasn't exactly official or legal. We don't want to call attention to ourselves because then social services will get involved. We don't want that. Right. So we've got to clear out. We went back to the place we used to live. We stayed for less than 5 minutes. Nothing had changed since the day Grandpa took us away. The place was still full of empty bottles and loaded strangers. We saw a guy slap the woman who used to be our mother, holding her hair in one hand and yelling in her face about money. But it was worth it, because that's when Eric took the car. It was a piece of crap, he said, but no one would miss something this beat up, and the kind of people who hung out at the place we used to live wouldn't have insurance, so nobody would come looking for it or get too upset that it was gone. He fixed it at the garage, and it ran pretty good. Good enough for us. We used to visit Grandpa every day. Eric said not to take it personally that Grandpa couldn't remember who we were. In his heart, he still knows us, Jamie, and we should act like he's still there. Just treat him like normal, even though he doesn't seem like the same person. We only go once a week now, though. We bring him lemon drops and read the sports section to him. He might not know who we are, but we can tell that he likes to hear the baseball stats and football plays and basketball team lineups. The newspapers are usually old, from the waiting room on the first floor, but he doesn't notice, and we don't care. We still like being with him, even if he doesn't know it's us. I walk up the stairs to Grandpa's room on the 4th floor. I don't like to take the elevators because it creeps me out to be in a small place. And when I get to the door of his room, I can see that he's asleep. I hate to say this, but I'm getting to like those visits best. The kind where I can just sit there in his quiet room and draw. Today, I sketch Grandpa asleep in his bed. Well, actually, I just draw his hand resting on top of the blanket. I'm trying to draw his knuckles, which look so much bigger than the rest of his fingers, when I notice that he's got big, ugly purple bruises on his wrists, just under the sleeves of his bathrobe. I push back one sleeve, and I see that he's got bruises that go all the way around his wrist. His skin is so papery and thin, and the marks aren't just dark like when I get them, but black, purple, green, yellow, and blotchy. Those are from the restraints. I turn to the voice from the door. It's Nan, the nicest of the aides who works on his floor. There's a lot of turnover at the place, so we hardly ever know the people taking care of Grandpa. Which is good, Eric says, because if we don't know them, they don't know us, and that's how we like things. He got agitated the other day, Nan explained, and we were worried he might fall out of bed in the night, so we put soft restraints on him to keep him safe. I don't know what to say. What do you say when you find out someone has been tied down? I might know what to say, but I know I'm not going to tell Eric. It would just be one more thing for him to worry about. Nan looks at me from the door, a little sad, I think. She knows that Eric and I are the only ones who visit Grandpa, and she takes good care of him. She calls him Mr. Dixon, and not just Dear, like some of the other staff do. Come with me, she says, and turns to leave the room. I pat Grandpa's hand and start to say goodbye, but instead, I rip out the picture I'd been sketching of his hand and sign it, "From your grandson Jamie," the shorter one. I prop it up on his bedside table so he'll see it when he wakes up. Then I turn and hustle after Nan, who's waiting for me by a food cart near the elevator. Here. She thrusts a paper bag at me. These folks don't eat half their meals anyway. Take a couple of sandwiches and some pudding cups to share with that handsome brother of yours. She winks and pushes the cart down the hall before I can think of how to thank her. I turn and head down the stairs, dinner in my hand and $20 in my pocket. Other than finding out that Grandpa's getting worse, which I kind of already knew anyway, even if I don't like to think about it much because there's nothing I can do to stop it, it's a pretty good day. I trot to Trudy's place because it's getting dark and I know Eric will be waiting for me by the outside door. We always go in and out of Trudy's place together so that we're not too much of a distraction to her. I don't know how you could distract someone who just sits in her bedroom watching TV and drinking beer all night after she gets home from work, but I do what Eric says. I'm not going to tell him about the money I made yet, and I'm definitely not going to bring up Grandpa's restraints, but I can't wait to show him that we're not eating leftover burgers tonight. 4. I love the library. Every day after school, I go there to do my homework. The library started out as another free, fun place Eric found. We could go there and use their computers or slip into the big meeting room for programs where there's sometimes a plate of leftover cookies in the back. I wish we could sleep in the library because it's warm and clean and I like the smell of books, but Eric says it's too risky to even try to hide out and crash there. Libraries are owned by the government, and we do all we can to stay off that radar since we're kind of illegal, 2 minors living on their own and all. He won't even let me get a library card. You'd have to show proof of residency, he explained. The school district might not realize our address is phony, but for sure a librarian would. They're sharp and they pay attention. We don't want them checking the address and figuring out we're not exactly what we say we are. Eric's rule number 5. Stay off the grid, out of sight, out of the loop. Don't do anything to call attention to yourself because the least little thing could trip you up. Even though I don't have a library card, I borrow books anyway. I find a book, read as much as I can after I've gotten my homework done, and then, until I've finished it, I stash the book in the natural science and mathematics section in the back corner. No one goes there much, so it's safe. When I'm done reading the book, I put it back where I found it. I have this trick I do to find the next book I'm going to read. I walk over to the stacks, close my eyes, and reach for a book. It's nice to be surprised like that, and I'm hardly ever disappointed in what I pick. I'm done with my homework, and I need a new book, so I wander between the shelves until I find the right place. I never know where it's going to be. I just know that I keep moving until something tells me I'm where I'm supposed to be. Then I shut my eyes, reach out, and take the first book I touch. I open my eyes, look down and see the words Annie Oakley on the cover above a picture of an old-fashioned woman with a pistol in her hand. There's something about her eyes that makes me want to open the book, even though I'm not really into history, and especially not history about girls and guns. I take the book back to my seat, glance through it, and before I know it, I'm reading a biography of Annie Oakley. No, I'm not just reading. I'm sucked into the book in that great way where you lose track of time and you can't remember where you are, and the words on the page are more real than what's around you. Annie Oakley was a trick shooter in the 1800s, but that's not why I like reading about her. The part about Annie Oakley that really hit me was when I found out how she had such terrible foster parents that she called them wolves because they beat her and worked her nearly to death, and although the book didn't come right out and say it, probably hurt her in ways kids shouldn't be hurt. Like me and Eric. It's like being part of a club no one wants to join, but one where you can recognize the other people who belong because you know what it's like, and in ways you can't even explain, you understand each other. But Annie Oakley didn't let that part of her life wreck her, and she made something of herself later when she got away, and she became rich and famous because of her shooting skill. Even though it's crazy, even though she's been dead forever, I got the feeling that I would have liked Annie Oakley. Drawing and shooting aren't anything like each other, but I kind of thought I knew what she must have felt like when she found out she was good at something that most other people aren't. As I'm reading and wishing I'd gotten the chance to know Annie Oakley, I reach into my backpack to grab a sketchbook because I want to draw her. As I pull out the sketchbook, a flyer falls to the floor. Mrs. Fitzgerald handed them out in art class this afternoon, but I haven't read it. It's an announcement for an art competition. Artists, singers, dancers, actors, writers, and sculptors of any age and skill level can submit their work for a cash prize and an exhibition or a performance during the month-long city culture fair. The top 5 winners will present their work at a reception. Artists are supposed to submit a portfolio of 15 to 25 pieces. I can't help getting excited. Greg thought my drawings were good enough to get homes for the dogs, so maybe I have what it takes to enter the contest. I flip through my sketches. I don't have anywhere near 15 finished pieces, but the last day to enter is 6 weeks away, and maybe that gives me enough time. The pages are full of partial sketches and crossed-out attempts, and I've hardly completed anything. But Greg recognized some of the dogs I've drawn, so I could probably work on finishing some works in progress and do a few new ones. I flip to a drawing of one of my favorites at the dog run, a spunky little corgi with the brightest, smartest look. If dogs had jobs, I just know this one would be a librarian dog. I grab a pencil to finish this picture. I close my eyes, trying to remember exactly what the dog looked like so I can get it down on paper. I'm frustrated, though, because I can't imagine him clearly enough. I open my eyes and see the librarian at the circulation desk. He's got his head cocked the same way as the corgi at the park. I smile at myself, but I capture the tilt of the dog's head. Somehow, between what I already had on the page and what I remember and what I can see in the librarian, I get the angle and the shadows just right. For the first time, I feel like a real artist. 5. We didn't work it out officially, but Eric and I take turns having bad dreams about what it was like in the time before Grandpa took us away. Seems every few nights we wind up hugging in the dark with one of us going, "Shh, it's okay, I'm here. You're safe, it was only a dream. Go back to sleep now." The only thing that changes is who's doing the shushing and who's shaking and sweating, sick to his stomach from the memories. Eric's rule number 6. Stuff from the dark doesn't get talked about in the light. Ever. Tonight, it's his turn to wake up and mine to do the shushing. I'm still feeling smooth and even from my time at the library, and I'm busy picturing drawings I want to make for the portfolio. So while he pulls himself together, I imagine the sketches I'm going to do. And I know that even if we don't talk about the memories in the night, I'm going to have to find a way to draw them. We lie there awake for a while. No matter who has the dreams, neither of us can go back to sleep right away. And I remember that I've got to tell him about working at the shelter, or he'll worry about where I am and what I'm doing. I'm going to start volunteering at the shelter in the afternoons for the service hours requirement at school. Oh, he says, that's nice. Dogs. His voice is getting sleepy, and I can tell that pictures of the dog run are replacing whatever dreams woke us both up. I think about my plan not to tell him I'm earning money drawing the dogs until I have a chunk of change I can show him. I can't decide if I want to impress him or surprise him. I don't think I've ever done either, so it's all good. I'm going with you the first day. You know that, right? His voice isn't so sleepy and soft anymore now. He wants to make sure it's safe for me to be there. It's good, I say. You'll like Greg. He's going to be my boss. How did you meet him? At the dog run. That's a good place. Yeah. We must have fallen asleep because the next thing we know, it's morning and we can hear Trudy's alarm clock. We're always up and dressed and out the door before she's done hitting the snooze button for the 6th time. I go to school, pay attention, and keep to myself. All the while, I'm thinking about the shelter that afternoon and what I'll draw. It's hard to notice what's going on around me with so many ideas running through my mind. Eric is waiting for me outside when I leave, and I feel bad because I know he took off work to make sure I'm okay. He'll like Greg, though. I feel bad fibbing to Eric about the reason I'll be spending time at the shelter. He doesn't say anything on the drive over, but that's normal. Eric is almost as stingy about words as about money. Jamie, I'm glad you decided to take me up on my offer. Greg looks happy to see me as we walk through the front door. He's pinning descriptions of adoptable dogs to the bulletin board in the lobby. Yeah, thanks. Volunteering here will help with school. This is my brother Eric. I'm speaking so fast it sounds like one really long word. Greg is quick, though, or he has an older brother himself, because he doesn't miss a beat. Good to meet you, Eric. He reaches out to shake hands. My brother is less friendly than I am, but even he reacts to Greg's basic good guyness and says hello. He started looking around like he was trying to find something he might not like, but when he shakes Greg's hand, I notice that squinty, hard look he gets when he's sizing people up has disappeared. I've got to get to work, Eric says to me. I'll see you later. Then he turns to Greg and nods. Thanks for letting him work here. He's doing us the favor, Greg says. I try to think if anyone's ever said that about me, but I'm pretty sure this is a first. Greg leads me through the door marked Employees Only, and we go down a hallway and turn into a room filled with dogs. There's a concrete slab, like a mini sidewalk, down the middle of the room, leading to a door. I can see an enclosed patio through the window. On either side of the little path are chain-link pens with doors. The dogs all stand up when we come into the kennel, like they're really polite and want to show off their good manners. A few whine or bark at Greg, trying to get his attention, but they all wag their tails and push their noses through the holes in the fences, trying to reach us. My throat tightens a little when I think that they're all hoping for someone to come save them from this place. Dogs weren't made to live in little concrete-floored, chain-link pens. And it's wrong. Wrong in a way that I know is huge. I don't pray, but I find myself thinking, please, 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 hoping that people are on their way right now to take all these dogs out of here. I think back to the running, barking, leaping, bounding, playing dogs in the dog park, and how they all seem to react when their owner stands up from the bench he or she was sitting on. A few of the dogs make a game out of being caught and leashed so they can leave, but I've noticed that most of the dogs drop their game the very second their people start to move, and the dogs run to them, ready to leave their dog friends and dog games in an instant for their people lives. Greg walks me down the aisle, pointing to each dog and introducing them all. This is Mac. He's an Irish setter. That's Gretchen, the pug you know from the park. You'll be happy to know she learned her lesson and hasn't snapped at anyone lately. Maya, the black lab, is in this cage, and the dogs of indeterminate lineage are Topher, Buzz, Gib, and Corky. I let them all smell my hand through the fence, and they seem to approve of me because they all go back to lying down. A few curl up and sleep. The rest watch Greg and me talk. Don't go in the cages by yourself. You're not even supposed to be back here, so I can't imagine the trouble I'd get in if you got bitten or let one of the dogs escape. I'm just gonna sit there and draw them. I'm already getting my sketchbook and pencils out of my backpack and deciding that I'm most interested in drawing the setter. I've never seen one in person before, and I like the ripples in the fur on his flank. I'm going to draw another 4 or 5 dogs today. That'll be $20 or $25, and I can't wait to put the money Greg will give me in my pocket with the first $20. I wonder how long this gig will last, and how much money I can save up to give to Eric. I don't dare hope, but a tiny part of me wants to get going on the portfolio pieces I'm going to submit for the contest. The idea of the cash prize makes me dizzy. Once I've drawn something, it's like it's burned into my mind, so even though I'll have to give Greg the original sketches of the dogs, I know I can draw them again for my portfolio. I've never thought about what I was going to draw or had plans for what I would do next. I'm excited about the ideas I have, and I can't wait to get to work. But first, I'm going to draw Greg. Mostly because I want a picture of him, but also because I need to see if I can capture the way his eyes seem to smile when he looks at the dogs, when he looks at me. I don't spend much time looking in mirrors, but I'm pretty sure it's the same look on my face when I sit at the dog run and watch the dogs. 6. It's Saturday morning. Eric works as many weekends as he can. He says days off weren't invented for people like us. Greg only volunteers at the shelter Monday through Friday, so I can't go there. I'm not ready to find out if Grandpa still needs restraints. And now that I've been drawing at the shelter up close and personal with the dogs and really getting to know them as individuals, I don't think I'd have as much fun at the dog park anymore. So, I head to the library. I'm going to sit in the comfy chair in the back corner near the restroom, put my feet up on the low windowsill, and start working on the non-dog pictures for my portfolio. I'd rather just submit 25 dog pictures, but something tells me I need to show variety, and besides, I've got some other ideas I need to work on. Ever since the last time Eric had bad dreams, I've known what I have to draw. The first sketch I start, once I get settled in my chair, comes from the place I never think about, and I'm surprised my pencil can take my hand where my mind would never go. The memories make me run for the toilet, gagging. I knew that letting myself think about this would make me sick, so I made sure I wasn't more than 10 feet from the men's room. I vomit until there's nothing left inside me. Then I rinse my mouth out at the sink and head back to the chair where I dropped my sketchbook. I slash at the paper with my pencil, dark, jagged lines, trying to figure out what screaming looks like. I know what it sounds like, and I remember what it feels like, but I'm trying to put it on paper. I borrowed a box of pastels from the art room because I know this needs color. I slash some lines in acid green and bile yellow, smudging dirty gray shadows with the side of my pencil. I remember the slaps and punches, the burns and the belts, Those I make fluorescent orange and blood red, broken lines that dig into and across the page. I can't do the rest. Not yet, because my hands are shaking too much to keep going into that dark place in my head. I will, though. Now that I've started, I know that I'll go back, that I'll find the colors and the shapes that will help me understand. Once I understand, then I'll be able to forget. Forget for real, not just pretend I can't remember. Eric has never talked about that time, or let me talk about it. But this picture I've drawn, well, I've said almost everything without saying a word. It's only lines and colors, no clear people or objects, but it's just right, and I know that anyone who looks at it will understand why Eric and I still wake up screaming sometimes. The next one is Eric. Of course. I draw him standing, looking off into the distance, with his shoulders back, and his profile looks like it belongs to a king or a god. I use golds, coppers, and bronzes so that he glows warm and strong. I could never show this to him. It would make him embarrassed. But I know there's something real about it, something right. It's the exact opposite of the first picture, and I know I'll put them back to back in my portfolio. I draw another picture of Greg next, closing my eyes first to picture his little round glasses and his dark shaggy hair and the loose way he ambles, jeans riding low on his butt — he needs a good belt — and his t-shirt covered in dog hair. He's laughing as he watches the dogs, and I can almost hear him just from how I draw his face in warm greens and happy blues. I've never used color before. I've always just sketched with soft pencils, and I'm surprised at how easily working with pastels comes to me and how much more I can see on the page. I sketch the librarian. He's sitting at his desk across the room from me, answering someone's question, so I don't have to close my eyes like when I'm trying to get Eric and Greg. The librarian's face is serious, but content, like he's doing something terribly important, something he was meant to do, and like there's no place on earth he'd rather be than sitting here with piles of books around him. I go back to using my pencil and sketch him in black and white, like the print on a page, and I smile because it's the perfect and only way to catch who and what he is. I can't help myself. I'm an artist who needs to know the names of his models. I pass by his desk like I'm on my way to the men's room and sneak a look at his name tag. Ed S. I hurry back to my chair and sketch an ID pin. I draw Grandpa, but not skinny and sick and tied to his bed like he is now. I remember the Grandpa from when I was little, leaning forward in his chair to watch a baseball game on TV, holding his breath to hear the call at first. I draw him wearing that plaid shirt that I didn't remember until I started drawing it. His wedding ring glints on his finger, and there's a hint of shine on his bald head. I know it's not possible, but as I draw, I swear I can smell the ivory soap he used. I sketch all day, and I'm startled when the announcement comes over the intercom that the library will be closing soon. I page through the sketchbook, surprised at how much work I've done today. Eric's rule number 7. Hard work is the only thing we can count on, so we better get used to it. I never thought I was any good. I never wanted to show anybody my drawings, but now I do. 7. Greg offers me a ride as we leave the shelter on Monday because it's raining. Even though showing him where I live is the last thing I want to do, he insists that he won't let me walk in the rain since we're leaving at the same time anyway. My heart sinks when we get to Trudy's apartment building. Because I got a ride instead of walking, I'm early and Eric isn't home from work yet. That means I have to stand outside the building until he gets here. I'm not allowed to go into the places we stay if he's not with me. I don't mind hanging around. I do it every day, but something tells me that Greg isn't going to drive off and leave me standing in the rain. I forgot my key, I say. So I'll just hang out at the laundromat across the street until my brother gets here. I've got nowhere to go. I don't work until later tonight, so I'll wait with you, he says. Oh, well, that's really nice, I say as I cross my fingers that Trudy will come home before Eric because I don't think Greg will buy it that we both forgot our keys. I look up and see that her apartment windows are dark, and I feel a knot begin in my stomach. This is why Eric and I try not to get too close to people, because you can't always keep them from knowing your business. You never asked what I do when I'm not at the shelter, Greg says. I feel stupid for not having asked, which I guess he wanted me to do, even though I think it's rude to put someone on the spot by asking them too many questions. He takes the pressure off me with his next sentence. You have really good manners not to pry, but I'll tell you anyway. I'm a drummer in a local band. The pay's not good, but it's a fun gig and gives me lots of free time in the day so I can work with the dogs. A drummer? I was an investment banker for a bunch of years out of college. I made a fortune, but there was no joy to my life. I had lots of money, but lots of problems. I'd love to have those kinds of problems. He looks at me and says slowly, Money isn't everything. It is if you don't have any. Ah. We sit for a few seconds after that, each of us looking out the side windows. So it's just you and your brother? No one knows that, though. That's what I thought. He drums his fingers on the steering wheel like he's hearing a song in his head and keeping the beat. Do you really live here? We're staying with a friend. For a while. Then what? Then we'll stay with someone else. Oh. He's still tapping his hands on the wheel. Rent is tough to swing, just that first, last, and deposit thing. We could handle rent if it wasn't too much. Eric works hard, it's just... Yeah, I know what you mean. He's still tapping and staring out the window, and I get the feeling his mind is far away, but I'm not sure where, or if it was a mistake or a good thing to let him know so much about us. It's not something I've ever done before. I'm glad to see Eric coming around the corner just then, and I mumble goodbye and thanks, and then slip out the door and slide into the shadows so that Eric doesn't see that Greg brought me home. Plus, I'm anxious to get away from what I'm sure is pity, and what I hope isn't the thought of calling someone to help us. Eric and I have worked really hard to keep far away from those things. Eric is soaking wet from walking in the rain, but he doesn't seem to notice that I'm dry. He nods, I nod back, and then we both take deep breaths and head into the building together. We're on the 5th floor landing when we hear thumping on the steps behind us. It's Greg closing his cell phone. I found you a place, he says. Eric looks at me, and I know he's not happy. Before I can say anything, though, Greg starts talking again. It's a buddy's apartment. He joined the service and shipped out to basic training last week. He couldn't break the lease, so I just called his sister, who's been keeping an eye on things for him. I asked if you could sublet, and she said he'll be happy not to have to eat the rent as long as you don't trash the place. I told her you were friends of mine, and I'd vouch for you. It's not much rent, because it's not much of a place, but it's clean and dry. It's just 6 months, though. That's 6 months more than we've ever had before, I think. And it'll be ours. Mine and Eric's. And it's a start. Eric's rule number 8. If it's even a little better than what came before, it's a lot better than what came before. Grab your stuff. We're out of here. That's what Eric always says to me when we're about to move, but this time, Greg says it to both of us because we're just standing there, frozen, on the 5th floor landing. I can swing by his sister's place and get the key on the way over, and you can give me the rent money, and I can send my buddy's sister a check, and she'll pay the super, and no one will have to know the details. I'll see Jamie at the shelter. He can let me know everything's working out okay. I hold my breath, thinking for sure Eric is going to say no. We're okay, we don't need help. But when I look over, he's not looking mad or uncomfortable, but tired and totally out of it. "Okay," I say, breaking the silence and making the decision for us. We don't have to say anything to Trudy about moving out because I'm pretty sure we'd be doing this same grab-and-go routine in a few days anyway. We always get kicked out of the places we stay, and she wasn't the friendliest person we ever knew to begin with. Eric is still looking like he can't move, and Greg is fiddling with his phone, and for a second I think Eric is just going to keep standing there, but he follows me down the stairs to our car, and we wait for Greg to start his car and pull up in front of us. Eric doesn't say anything as we drive, following Greg. We make a stop at a small house about 10 blocks away and watch Greg jog to the door, get the key from the woman who answers his knock, and then wave to us as he gets back in his car. When we finally pull up in front of a shabby row of stores, a Mexican restaurant, a pawn shop, a convenience store, and a second-hand shop, Greg gestures to us to park. Eric circles the block twice before a parking spot on the street by a liquor store opens up. "Come on." I grab our bags and my box of drawings. We walk to the doorway between the Mexican restaurant and the convenience store where Greg is waiting for us. "It's number 5. He holds the key out to Eric. I don't think Eric is going to take it, so I snatch it. I'm as hyper as Eric is out of it. I open my mouth to say thank you, but Greg's disappeared. Poof, like smoke. He's gone, and it's just Eric and me and the key to our new place. I shove the door open with my shoulder, and slowly Eric follows me up a flight of narrow stairs. We climb to the 3rd floor and turn right at the landing. I squint at the numbers on the 2 doors in the dim hallway. I jerk my chin at the door on the left and say, "That's it." I turn to Eric, hand him the key, and feel the stab of surprise run through him as I place it in his hand. Because we've never had a key to any place we've ever stayed. We usually have to wait in the apartment hallway or sit in the car on the street waiting for whoever we're crashing with to come home if they don't answer our knock. And Grandpa was always waiting for us to get home. We're standing at the door, and I'm wondering why he's not unlocking it already, and I look down and see that his hand is shaking. Eric's hand is shaking as he lifts the key to the lock, and he's moving like he's underwater or in a dream, and I take a deep breath, and then I realize that I'm shaking too. And finally, he opens the door, and we stand there and look. We can see the entire place from the doorway. It's a furnished studio, small and grubby and painted hot pink. Every wall. I see a door that leads to what must be a bathroom. There's a futon and a ratty couch and a dinged-up dresser and some cinder blocks and boards making a little bookcase and a tiny table and 2 mismatched kitchen chairs. The kitchen is a corner of the room with a small fridge and a 2-burner stove and a mini-oven. A stove and an oven. We can heat up the burgers Eric brings home for supper. We can have hot food. We don't have to sleep on the floor, and we don't have to share a bathroom with other people, and we can take our things out of our duffel bags for the first time in more than 2 years, and we aren't going to come back someday to find our stuff outside the door, which means it's time for us to move on. I feel dizzy and lean against the door frame. I notice that Eric has put his hand against the wall to steady himself, too. We have a place. After all this time and thinking it would never happen for us, boom, we're shutting the door behind us and flipping the lock. Neither of us has cried in a really long time, and we've sure never cried from relief. But tonight, we come close. 8. I'm sitting against the wall at the end of the row of kennels, trying to get the ear right on a golden retriever who's sleeping, tucked in a little dog ball in the pen to my right, when I hear a gacking sound. I look up from my sketchbook and see the border collie 2 pens over. She's standing with her legs spread, head down, heaving. A shiver passes through her body, and she starts to shake. She takes a couple of steps forward and flops to the ground, her legs useless and her balance gone. I jump up and rush over, ignoring the rule not to enter any dog's area without supervision. By the time I get to her pen, she's lying on her side, twitching and heaving, spasms racking her entire body, her face jerking in her own vomit. I fumble with the latch on the gate and see that she's lying in a puddle of pee. I throw the door open and drop to my knees next to her. "Shh, it's okay. I'm here, you're safe." I automatically mumble the words I always say to Eric when he has bad dreams as I reach out to touch her flank, letting her know she isn't alone. Eric's rule number 9. Everything is less scary when you're not alone. Her body is jerking, and her legs are pedaling as if she's trying to run away from whatever has taken over her body. Her eyes are open but unfocused, and she snorts, trying to breathe, arching and bucking on the concrete in her own filth. I feel cold and numb, like I might vomit or wet myself, too. I want to make whatever this was stop, because she looks terrified, and I'm sick to my stomach, hoping she isn't in pain. As I stroke her fur and murmur soft words, she gradually settles down. Her legs stop thrashing, and her breathing quiets. Her eyes close, and other than the frantic pounding of her heart, which I can feel through the side of her chest, I can tell she's getting calm. I keep petting her and talking to her, nonsense about what a good dog she is, and how pretty her coat is, and what a beautiful line there is to her head, and how much I want to draw her when she feels better. Her heart slows down to a normal pace, and she stops panting and flailing. Her eyes flutter, and she gives one last shudder and seems to move from whatever was happening to her into a kind of sleep. I ignore the stench of her puke and the fact that I am kneeling in urine, and I never stop petting her and talking softly. A few minutes later, her eyes flutter open, and she jerks, scrambling to sit up. She's weak, though, or dizzy, and she starts to tip over. I reach out to grab her so she doesn't fall to the ground, and I pull her into my lap. I wipe away the sticky trickle of spitty throw-up that clings to the side of her muzzle. She looks up at me, surprised, I think, seems to sigh, and rests her chin on my arm as I cradle her in my lap. I rock her back and forth gently, somehow feeling the warmth and strength flow back to her. She pulls away finally, as if she were just waking up, and turns her face to me, that bright border collie look back in her eyes, and I can feel her tail start to whip back and forth. She tries to scooch around in my lap so she can kiss my face. The rank smell of her pukey breath makes me want to turn away, but I don't, and I hear the door of the kennel open. "What are you doing in the pen?" I look up at Greg entering the room with a mop and a bucket. "Something bad happened to this one," I say. "She threw up and peed and then fell down and started shaking all over." "Oh, yeah, poor girl. She's old and has seizures. The owner didn't want to deal with the hassle and mess." Greg kneels next to us, as if he doesn't notice the smell of puke and piss, and maybe he doesn't. "She's a good soul, this one." "Why does she have seizures?" "The vet says it's just one of those things. He can't find anything wrong with her. She doesn't have them all the time." "Do they hurt her? Is she scared?" He smiles as she shimmies around in my lap so she can nuzzle my ears. "You wouldn't think so by looking at her, would you?" "What's going to happen to her?" "She probably won't be adopted." He shakes his head. "Most people don't want to take on the responsibilities of an older dog who's hard of hearing with bad eyesight and has seizures." "So then she'll just live here forever? In this pen?" Even the Toyota was better than this dog prison, I think, because at least Eric and I had each other. "It's not that bad," Greg says. "We do the best we can. It's a no-kill facility, so she'll live out her life and be warm and clean and looked after, and she'll always have enough to eat." "Oh." I look down at her. The seizure must have made her tired, because she's starting to doze in my arms. Her weight and heat feel good, and my eyes sting to think of her alone in the dark, falling down with no one to hold her and talk to her until she feels more like herself. I blink away the tears that spring to my eyes and bury my face in her neck. She sighs again. Greg looks at me, looks down at the border collie sleeping in my lap, over at the door leading to the outside pen, and then back at us. "Why don't you just take her outside for some fresh air? I have to clean up this mess. She's new, only been here a couple of days, you know. I haven't even entered her paperwork into the system. It's kind of like no one but you and I know she's here. I look up at him, and he winks, leans down to pet the collie goodbye, and walks away. And just like that, I have a dog. And the dog has me. 9. Eric is smiling. I must have fallen asleep after I brought my dog back to our place. She was curled up next to me on the futon, tucking her back between my butt and knees, because I open my eyes and see Eric standing over us, looking down, smiling. And when I see his face, I realize I can't remember the last time I've seen him smile. I got a dog, Eric. I see that. I've been making money, sketching. I draw pictures of the dogs at the shelter, and Greg pays me for them and puts them on a website. They help the dogs find a home because Greg says I capture their spirit, and well, this one, even though she's got a great spirit and is a wonderful person, dog, isn't the kind who's going to find a good home if we don't take her. Eric just looks at us. I'll take care of her and feed her and clean up after her, and the floor is linoleum so she won't ruin anything. And she's real old and housebroken, so she won't bark or be a nuisance. She's real nice, Jamie, but I don't know how we can keep her. We can't get rid of Annie Oakley. What? That's what I named her. I read a book about Annie Oakley. She was a trick shooter a long time ago, and I don't suppose she talked much about the part that happened before either. Oh. And we can't send her back to the shelter. Someone already did that, and no one will want her because she's old and deaf and has seizures, but I don't mind. I wait, nervous and sweating, and wondering if he'll agree to another mouth to feed and more worries. He's probably worried, too, that there might be rules about not having pets, and worried about the mess she might make. But this doesn't seem like the kind of place that would be real strict, because it's not fancy. And Greg thought it was okay for me to bring her here. I know I shouldn't push Eric, but I can't lose Annie Oakley. Eric's rule number 10. If you have to know now, the answer is no. If you can wait a while, we'll see. I hope he just says yes right this very second. Eric studies Annie Oakley for a little while. Then he sighs and shrugs. This family could use a good woman. Welcome home, Annie Oakley. Her tail thumps on the bed like she knows exactly what he means. Eric flops next to me on the futon. Shove over and make some room. I do, and Annie Oakley stretches out, her rump against me and her chin resting on Eric's arm. And I know that tonight, at least, no one's going to have bad dreams or seizures. 10. Family. Eric called us a family last night when he said we could keep Annie Oakley. And he said home, too. I've never heard Eric say those words. I lie awake all night, not like I usually do, wondering where we're going next or trying to think of anything but the reason Eric or I woke up. Tonight, I'm thinking about family and home and art. I get up off the futon. Annie Oakley wakes up and watches me go to my backpack to get my sketchbook and pencils and take them to the bathroom where I can turn on the light but not wake up Eric. As I shut the door, I see her creep over to sleep with him. I sit with my back to the tub, my sketchbook on my lap. Although I just caught a glimpse as she settled herself next to him, I draw Annie Oakley and Eric sleeping, curled up together on the futon. When I'm done, I look over the finished drawings in my cardboard folder, pulling out the ones that don't need any more work. The colored one about what came before. Eric. 2 of Greg. The librarian at his desk. Grandpa watching baseball. Eric and Annie Oakley sleeping, and the best of the dogs from the shelter and the dog run. When I count them, I'm surprised to see that I have 15, the exact number I need. Before I can chicken out, I slip into my clothes, and at the door to the hallway, I snap my fingers for Annie Oakley. She leaps off the futon and pads over to me. I clip the leash onto her collar and close the door behind us silently. It's early, 6 or 6:30, and we head to the library. I know it's still closed, but there's an after-hours drop box where I can leave my portfolio. The entry form says any government building will accept submissions. I've been carrying the form around. I pull it out of my backpack when we get to the library, and I sit on the steps filling it out. I feel a zingy thrill when I write down our address. Then, I slip the form into the folder with my work and put the whole thing in the drop box. I can't possibly win, but in the end, I'm submitting my work because the contest gave me a reason to draw all the things I'll never be able to talk about. I know Eric is still worried. He stresses about the money pouch and the expense notebook, and now he has a little calendar, too, in which he counts the days until our 6-month sublet is up and we have to find a new place. And Grandpa is never going to get better and remember us. So things aren't perfect. But for today, the sun is coming up, and my 15 finished drawings are in the drop box, and Annie Oakley stands next to me, leaning into my leg, and we're going home to see Eric. Eric's rule number 11. Good enough is enough for us.
We hope you have enjoyed our presentation of Paintings from the Cave, 3 novellas by Gary Paulsen. Copyright 2011 by Gary Paulsen. Performed by Kevin R. Free, Sarah Grace, Nick Podell, and Jim Bond. Directed by Cheryl Smith, Jerry Maybrook, and Colleen Willits. Performance copyright 2011 by Brilliance Audio, all rights reserved. For further information concerning this program or other Brilliance Audio titles, please call the following toll-free number, 1-800-222-3225, or visit our website at www.brillianceaudio.com. No part of this recording may be played for an audience or reproduced in any form. It may not be streamed, downloaded, broadcast, or copied without written permission. Address all inquiries to Brilliance Audio, Post Office Box 887, Grand Haven, Michigan 49417.